On a night covered with lightning, the day of awakening had arrived, and in the SS-ranked Death Lair, the oldest of existences, the first S-ranked dungeon appeared on. The Blue Star, and for decades the Death Lair, remained unconquered. Countless powerful warriors met their deaths there. But this time Su-Ming challenged the Death Lair alone, and slew the strongest god-level aberrant beast. However, the people who were also there wanted Su-Ming to stop clinging to life and hand over the divine artifact. One of the guys calls Su-Ming the god of massacre, and warns that his luck has run out. Another guy emphasizes that, because Su-Ming is a hero of humanity, they will give him a quick death, and that he should just say where he hid the divine artifact. Su-Ming grips his sword, and while releasing power, comments that he never imagined everyone there would ambush him at the exact moment he cleared the dungeon just to steal the divine artifact. So, he wants to know if that had been their plan from the beginning. Zhang Tong steps forward while equipping his powerful weapon. Then he raises it high, and asks Su-Ming to hand over the divine artifact, stressing that for the sake of their past brotherhood, he will not eliminate him. Having said that, he laughs and emphasizes that he will only destroy his powers. Su-Ming also laughs and comments that he thinks he must have gone blind because since he was 18 years old, he had always treated Zhang Tong as a brother, fighting side by side all these years that have passed. Then he says that he did not see how poisonous he truly is. Having said that, he raises his sword and begins to release great power. Su-Ming also comments that if they want to test the power of the Ring of Defiance, then they should all try to take it, but he stresses that he doubts any of them have what it takes to do so. One of Zhang Tong's lackeys is surprised and comments that the power he is feeling is undeniably that of a divine artifact. Another says there is no time to lose and that everyone should eliminate Su-Ming once and for all and search for the divine artifact he hid. But Zhang Tong says that Su-Ming currently has the power of the divine artifact, and because of that he thinks they cannot simply act impulsively yet. Even so, he knows the plan is one step away from completion. At that moment, someone appears above calling out to Su-Ming, who in turn is confused by what he is seeing. There's already a woman heading toward him as soon as she reaches the ground. She hugs Su-Ming, and he wants to know what she is doing there. She says that she heard someone was conspiring against him, and because of that she was very worried. Su-Ming smiles and comments that he is fine since he has already obtained the divine artifact. Then he looks ahead and stresses that everyone there are partners, but emphasizes that he only did not understand one thing since Zhang Tong's group discovered his exact location at that moment. The woman lands a critical blow on Su-Ming, who in turn cannot believe that she did that, and asks why. Zhang Tong becomes excited, shouting that the plan was a success, and informs that the final catalyst is already in place, and that therefore they should activate the imprisonment formation, and as soon as they activate it, a magic circle appears around Su-Ming, who is completely perplexed, since he knows that the cursed seal he is seeing belongs to Ren Xiaoman, but wonders if she betrayed him a long time ago. Zhang Tong says that what Su-Ming is witnessing is the imprisonment formation they prepared just for him, and that he can no longer channel powers. Ren Xiaoman apologizes to Su-Ming and informs that, to be honest, she only stayed with him because of Zhang Tang. Then, while her ability continues to take effect, she says that when she saw that he awakened a 9-star talent, she knew she could simply use him to obtain the divine artifact. Su-Ming becomes furious and starts shouting and trying to break the imprisonment formation. However, Zhang Tong tells his lackeys to attack the MC immediately until a skeletal arm emerges from the ground and another woman appears. Conjuring her summons and blocking everyone's advance, Su-Ming is surprised to see who it is and asks what she's doing there. Jiao turns around and asks Su-Ming not to give up, saying that he cannot let despicable cowards obtain the divine artifact. Zhang Tong shouts that another one has appeared, seeking to be eliminated, then informs that there are dozens of masters there, and that not even an emperor descending from the heavens could save them. Having said that, everyone charges forward again. Zhang Ti advances with full force, saying that those who dare block his path will be eliminated. Su-Ming shouts, asking Jiao to take care of her flank. However, as soon as she realizes something, she is attacked by Zhang Tang, who tells her not to take it personally. The MC cannot believe that his friend was attacked. Zhang Tong goes to Su-Ming and emphasizes that this is not the time for him to waste time worrying about others. Then he points his celestial weapon at his face and makes it clear that he will also be eliminated. While Su-Ming tries at all costs to break free from the imprisonment formation, Zhang Tong once again asks him to hand over the divine artifact and explains that he might consider sparing him. Su-Ming becomes extremely furious, and after managing to break some parts of the chains of the imprisonment formation, calls everyone bastards and activates his divine explosion technique. Zhang Tang jumps back to avoid being hit by the explosion, and one of the lackeys comments that the power they just witnessed is a divine level technique. Su-Ming, while his entire body is badly injured, goes to Jiao and asks why she appeared, saying that he failed her so many times. Jiao places her hand on the MC's face, and with great difficulty speaking, says that if they have to die, then she thinks they will die together. Out of nowhere, a sword falls from the heavens, stabbing fiercely into the ground. And while everyone watches it, Su-Ming picks up his friend in his arms and says that on that day, he, the god of massacre, swears completely that if he is reborn, he will hunt all of them to the ends of the world. Ren Xiaoman asks what the MC is trying to do. Zhang Tong is surprised and explains that it seems Su-Ming is trying to drag these divine artifact back to the Death Lair with him. and while Su Ming stands at the edge of a cliff, Jiang Tong shouts for his lackeys to stop him and take the divine artifact. However, the MC jumps off the cliff, and while he is falling with his friend, he tells Jiang Tong that if he really wants the ring, then he should go try to get it. At that moment, the divine artifact begins to shine intensely, and after some time, the MC sees a glow and wonders if he is dead until, upon waking up, he wonders where he is amid many people. A guy is laughing and announcing that at the 127th awakening ceremony of the first Xuanzong Academy, the student Wang Chang successfully changed professions. Being a life-type enchanter profession with an innate 3-star attribute, the people around comment that most of the awakened at the ceremony are not combat professions. Su Ming is intrigued to learn that he is at the awakening ceremony. Then, he thinks that he is feeling a familiar sensation next, as he looks around more carefully. He wonders if he has gone back in time to when he was 18 years old on the day of the awakening ceremony. For he clearly remembers that the student who just awakened the chubby Wang Chang in his past life was also an enchanter. And he remembers well that the next to awaken should be Li Song Yang, who successfully awakened the combat profession of warrior with an innate 2-star attribute while Chang Yu failed to awaken. And Song Li successfully awakened the profession of combat mage, thus the person responsible for presenting the ceremony announces that the next one, the student Li Song Yang, had a successful awakening, and that the profession is warrior with a mul, innate 2-star attribute. Then he announces that Xian Yu unfortunately failed to awaken, and finally Song Li, who had a successful awakening, being of the combat mage profession. The guy who had regained consciousness thinks that it truly happened. Just as he remembered then, he becomes happy to know that he is truly back, and as he recalls what happened in his past, he reflects that this second chance was the will of the heavens to rewrite all of his regrets until the students become astonished by what they are seeing. Jiang Tong is awakening a hidden combat profession, and after successfully completing the awakening, he becomes the magic hammer warrior, possessing an innate attribute level of 8 stars. One person comments that the first hidden combat profession has appeared. Another emphasizes that this was already expected of Jiang Tong, the young master of the Zhang family, since his father is a war emperor and his mother a magic warrior. The MC keeps thinking about Jiang Tong. Then, while the presenter congratulates him and says that Xuanjing Academy has produced an 8-star genius right at the beginning of the year, someone taps the MC on the back and comments that he was there. All this time, he turns around in surprise. Su Ming sees that it is Guillou, and she comments that she has been looking for him for a while. Then she asks why Su Ming looks surprised. He replies that it is nothing, and that he just wanted to congratulate her in advance. Zhao does not quite understand, and asks why he is congratulating her. Su Ming remembers what happened in his past life. Then he replies that she will understand. When she goes up on stage at that moment, the presenter calls for Ji Yao, and she is quite surprised to learn that it is already her turn after she arrives at the spot. To see whether she will awaken successfully, the presenter asks her to place her hand on the celestial star. As soon as she brings her hand closer, she becomes intrigued by something, and the presenter becomes excited, commenting that another hidden profession has appeared. Having said that, he announces that Ji Yao has awakened a hidden combat profession, that of a necromancer with an innate level of 7 stars. The students go crazy upon learning this and comment that the academy is extremely impressive that year. The MC smiles and thinks that it is exactly as he remembered, and that next it will be his turn. Thus, the presenter calls for Su Ming. The people comment that after witnessing 2 awakenings of hidden professions, they believe a third one is impossible, in addition to knowing that Su Ming from Class 1 is an orphan. And the MC keeps in mind that in a world dominated by the awakened on Blue Star, the Dragon Country decades ago, after the day of awakening, everyone who turns 18 can change professions by participating in the awakening ceremony, becoming one of the awakened who changed the face of the world and possess the power to bend the rules along with wealth and equipment capable of changing destiny. However, at the same time, they must face gigantic beasts and terrible calamities as well as countless challenges. Su Ming, as he stands before the celestial star to see whether he will awaken or not, reflects that in his past life. As an orphan, he survived with help and scholarships, and that on the day of the awakening ceremony. He was fortunate enough to be blessed by the heavens, since a celestial phenomenon also appeared at the time. For he knew that in the end he awakened with an innate attribute of 9 stars, the legendary profession that of the god of slaughter. Thus he places his hand on the celestial star and thinks that he will make everyone see him with different eyes. At that moment, the presenter begins to look extremely surprised upon seeing the type of energy, then wonders whether it will be the birth of a genius with an innate attribute of 9 stars or more. The people around are also dumbfounded and soon want to know whether it is truly possible for someone to awaken another hidden profession. Su Ming thinks that he needs to feel the runes again, but ends up becoming quite surprised and intrigued since he is seeing the divine artifact, the divine ring of rebellion. Then he really wants to know whether the artifact accompanied him on the journey back in time, until he becomes even more intrigued by a system screen in front of him informing that the strongest Godslayer system has successfully bound itself, and that the system has bound a new profession to the MC with that the awakening is complete, and the mythical profession of the god of the sword has been obtained. Su Ming reflects on the mythical profession of the god of the sword that he has just obtained, and then begins to see an enormous sword-shaped form emerging from the celestial star. The presenter, extremely surprised, comments that for such a phenomenon to appear, he wonders what the hell the MC is changing professions into. One of the students comments that he thinks, if it is a combat profession, it would be quite incredible, and that if it is a life profession, it would be a complete tragedy, until another student asks if his friend is stupid because a phenomenon like the one they are witnessing could never be a life profession. Jung Tong becomes intrigued by something, and observing Su Ming carefully wonders why he is not moving while Su Ming is, thinking that the profession awakened this time is that of the god of the sword and not that of the god of slaughter, as in his past life. And while he clicks on the golden system, he knows that it is something different from his previous life. After the MC places his fingerprint on the system, it informs that he has been identified, and that the target Su Ming has been confirmed. Then it informs that the awakened profession is that of the god of the sword, and that the golden talent is the P. Sublimation of all things, Su Ming is surprised by this golden talent, since he has in mind that this is even greater than the 9-star profession level he awakened in, his past life. Thus he smiles and thinks that if this is really the case, he believes he should surpass his past life. God of Slaughter, then he starts interacting with the system, and it informs that it will open the skill interface for Su Ming, but soon reports that no skills have been awakened. The MC cannot believe this, and begins to search like a madman through his system to see if he has at least one skill. The people around start wanting to know what Su Ming is doing there, since he seems nervous, desperate. The MC realizes that he does not have any skills and wonders what. The difference is compared to before awakening, and whether the system is mocking him. Then the system informs that the MC will be receiving feedback and that it will continue to guide him. However, an error occurs as identification of the ring is required. Su Ming becomes intrigued when he sees a ring appear in his hand, which soon begins to glow, and the system notifies that the divine ring of rebellion has been successfully identified. A huge radiance begins to emerge and grows increasingly stronger. People comment that the fluctuation is extremely intense. The person responsible for presenting the awakened, extremely surprised, asks whether the awakening is complete until he becomes completely shocked upon seeing that the MC's innate talent is an astonishing 10 stars. Thus, he informs everyone that Su Ming's profession change is to a hidden profession, that of sword controller. The students are stunned to see that the innate attribute is 10 stars, since they know that this is the talent level of the top-ranked individual. Another student comments that he thought Jang Tong's 8-star magic hammer warrior was already terrifying, but now there's a 10-star level. The old man comments that the year they are in is truly a year of developing talents for the academy, since not only have several students with hidden professions appeared, but there is also a chosen of the heavens with a 10-star innate attribute. He also emphasizes that although the potential of the sword controller profession is not so outstanding within the swordsman category, Su Ming possesses a 10-star innate attribute talent, and he believes that he will definitely have limitless potential in the future. Then the director says that he has decided to reward the student Su Ming with a set of cultivation assistance items, and as he walks among the students, Su Ming hears various things. One of them is that someone thinks the sword controller is a waste of innate talent, since the sword controller is considered the very bottom among the swordsman category. In addition, the swordsman category is inherently a close-range profession, while the sword controller can operate both at close and long range, needing to cultivate both physical and magical attacks. And that although it can use long-range attacks, this causes the original close-range cultivation resources of the swordsman to be divided, making combat power very mediocre. Being a completely weak profession, Su Ming only thinks that in their eyes, the sword controller is just trash, until Ji Yao runs over to her friend and offers her congratulations. The MC comments that he is also very happy for her and congratulates her. Ji Yao says that all the students are talking nonsense and she thinks that being able to awaken a 10-star talent makes Su Ming truly amazing, and that although the sword controller profession is a bit weaker in the early stages, she believes that with her friend's talent, it will definitely not be a problem. He thanks her and says that he did not take the other's words seriously. Then he says that their reaction is exactly what he wanted. At that moment, the director calls for Ren Xiaoman. Zhang Tang comments that he is sure she will succeed, just like many other students. Ji Yao comments that Xiaoman is very popular, since that was already expected of the school beauty. However, upon seeing the MC leave without saying anything, she says that the ceremony is not over yet. He replies that he is not the least bit interested in the result, since he has in mind that in his past life, this woman used his talent, and in the end, did not hesitate to betray him. And while she goes to learn her awakening results, Su Ming thinks about the words he said before, in which he stated that he would take revenge for being betrayed upon arriving at the city senator. He thinks that in this life, everything about daily life seems unchanged except for his awakened profession. Then he sees in his system the total concealment skill capable of hiding or rewriting one's own information, such as equipment, profession, and skills. Su Ming thinks about this skill, since he has in mind that this is one of the 4 skills he brought from his past life. Then he remembers the ring and keeps observing it in his hand. Then the system informs that it will be loading the divine artifact ring of rebellion, and after loading, informs that the MC has inherited part of the abilities of the god of slaughter profession. Su Ming becomes confused about his new god of the sword profession, having abilities of a god of slaughter. Then he checks his status, currently having 10 points in strength, 10 in constitution, 10 in agility, 10 in spirit, and 10 in luck, being at level 1. His profession is god, of the sword of legendary grade and unique in the world. His talent is the sublimation of all things. And his skills are God of Slaughter, Strike Total Concealment, Divine Shadow Step, and Eye of Perception. The MC reflects that a common man is innocent but possessing a power. Jade Ring becomes a crime, and that to avoid being used by others again, like in his past life, it is because his current strength is still insufficient. Thus, since the 10-star talent cannot be hidden, he concludes that he must hide the information about his god of the sword profession, and that he will firmly seize this chance to be reborn. Then he thinks that according to his past life's experience on the day, after the awakening ceremony ends, the novice dungeon challenge will arrive. However, he knows that the novice dungeon is not a challenge, and that therefore to level up faster and obtain better equipment, he must challenge the most difficult boss he has in mind, but before that he needs to get his hands on a good weapon first. Meanwhile, in a luxury hotel, Jiang Tong and Ren Xiaoman are kissing. Then she comments that he is very bad, since the awakening ceremony had barely ended, and he was already taking her to a place like that. Jiang Tong asks her not to mention the awakening ceremony, because Su Ming completely stole his spotlight. Ren Xiaoman asks him not to be angry, but comments that although that Su Ming is just a sword controller, the attributes he awakened are very high, and that he will definitely have great value of use in the future. Jiang Tong becomes confused and asks what she's trying to say. Ren Xiaoman takes out her phone and asks him to take a look. Jiang Tang becomes quite surprised by what he sees. She then comments that if they lure the MC a little, she thinks he will definitely bite the bait and be useful to them in the future. After a few hours in the city center, the EMC arrives at a place where a woman welcomes him and informs that this is the weapon shopping area on the 12th floor and wishes the customers a pleasant shopping experience. As soon as he enters, Su Ming looks around and thinks that it seems the awakening ceremony of that year at the nearby schools has already ended, since the awakened students are all there. Preparing for the novice dungeon test the next day, Su Ming hears a student desperately wanting a weapon, but his friend tells him to forget it. Since his newly awakened students, they would have no way to buy such an expensive weapon, and that they should just use their awakened abilities to work like dogs and earn money in the future. The MC then sees several people in front of a sword, saying that it is the Tyrant's Frost Sword, which was recently forged by a high-tier player, but even so, they still cannot believe that its market price is 1 million coins. Su Ming walks along and thinks that he knows this weapon is fake because he remembers it from his past life, and that the gang of merchants who sold these counterfeits were all arrested until he hears someone asking him to wait. A woman accompanied by several bodyguards wants to know if the MC is Su Ming. He becomes intrigued and immediately wants to know who she is. She takes out a card and says that she has not introduced herself yet, then says that her name is Jiang Lan and that she is the vice director of the Jiang An conglomerate. Su Ming takes her business card, and after observing it for a bit, comments that he thinks he knows her from somewhere. Jiang Lan calls to the MC once again and says that on behalf of the Jiang An conglomerate, she will cover all of his expenses there that day, but that she hopes he can do a favor. Su Ming, suspicious, wants to know what kind of favor it would be. She asks one of her bodyguards to take out a photograph, and he shows the phone to the MC to take a look. Jiang Lan says that the girl Su Ming is seeing is her younger sister Zhang Yun Chung, and that she studies at the same school as him. Then she says that her sister also awakened successfully earlier, and that she has thoroughly investigated the news about the MC awakening, a 10-star talent, because she thinks that with his talent, the novice dungeon the next day should not be very difficult for him. Thus, Jiang Lan emphasizes that she is sure Su Ming is also aware that only those who have recently changed professions can enter the novice dungeon, so she hopes that he can join her younger sister and protect her while she completes the challenge in this novice dungeon. He thinks about it, but soon replies that he refuses, that he is not interested, and walks away. Jiang Lan cannot believe it, and emphasizes that as long as he agrees, he can choose any weapon in that shop, because she thinks that as a poor student who has just awakened, he should not refuse such an offer. Thus, Su Ming points to a sword and says that he wants that one, then says that it is the Tyrant's Frost Sword worth 1 million. Jiang Lan is completely stunned and comments that he is trying to make things difficult, then asks whether the MC really thinks it is worth 1 million with its current stats. Su Ming asks whether she was not the one who said he could choose whatever he wanted, because he thinks that if she is not willing, it is better to forget the deal. Then he comments that there are many things for which one cannot take shortcuts with mere financial power. So he asks Jiang Lan to have her sister do her utmost to prepare for the novice dungeon test the next day. While Jiang Lan stops the bodyguards from doing anything to the M's, she comments that this is quite interesting and that they will consider their offense against the MC this time. And after they leave and the crowd realizes that Su Ming messed with the Jiang An conglomerate people, he becomes intrigued by something, since he is seeing a message from someone. Upon opening it, he sees that it is from Ren Xiaoman. In the message, she asks whether he did not always say that he liked her, so he has ended up changing his mind, and she wants to see him that night on the rooftop of the school building. Su-ming keeps in mind that this is the same message from his past life, and that although he did not awaken the god of slaughter profession this time, Ren Xiaomon really has not changed at all. He already knows that at the same time in his past life, he had agreed and would see her there. After that, Su-ming goes to a place and asks permission from a saleswoman. She immediately asks how she can help him. He asks whether what he is seeing are raw sword stones that can randomly produce high-quality sword weapons. The saleswoman replies that yes, and says that the raw weapon stones there have a chance to produce silver, grade weapons. Then she emphasizes that the MC should understand that everything is based on probability, since most raw stones only produce lower grade weapons, and that therefore she hopes he will consider carefully before buying Su. Ming comments that this is exactly what he wants. The saleswoman becomes a little confused upon hearing that the MC approaches the raw stones and explains that, compared to buying a silver grade weapon at a high price that will soon become obsolete betting on a stone, therefore a cheap price is the most suitable option, Su. Mang reflects that instead of calling it a gamble, he thinks he should say that he can see the data inside the raw stones, since all of this is thanks to the second ability left to him by his god of slaughter from his past life, which is called Eye of Perception, because his eyes possess the true power of perception. Capable of perceiving the fundamental information of all matter, thus after analyzing each of the stones, he picks one up in his hand and concludes that it will be that one, since compared to ordinary silver, grade weapons that sell for hundreds or thousands of advent coins, obtaining one at that moment for only 50 coins is an absolute bargain, especially since he knows this is perfectly suitable now that he has returned to being a poor student at that moment. A guy appears at the door, wanting to know if the MC is not the kid who just rejected the Zhonggan conglomerate. Then, more people enter the room, and a guy wants to know if what the MC has in his hands is not one of those useless, raw weapon stones used for gambling on weapons. The blonde guy comments that he thought the MC was some kind of big shot with a lot of confidence, but seeing him reject a favor from a conglomerate just to mess around with useless stones, he thinks that in the end, he is just another idiot. Su-ming takes a deep breath and thinks that he knows the blonde guy and that his name is Yang Ding, the spoiled brat who specialized in bullying freshmen in his past life. After reflecting on this, the MC calls out to them and asks whether they dare to bet 5,000 advent coins that he can obtain a silver-grade weapon. They look at each other for a brief moment and soon start laughing, saying that the MC really is a complete idiot. Yang Ding says that these types of raw weapon stones have a 99.99% chance of producing trash and that he has never seen someone who likes giving away money. So much Su-ming comments that they will see who is giving money to, whom people passing by hear them making the bet, and it does not take long for many people to gather there to watch the MC open the raw stones. Yang Ding makes it clear that he will see whether a poor bastard like the MC can really come up with 5,000 coins. Su-ming activates his Eye of Perception and visualizes the sword inside the stone, then shouts for it to come out. Yang Ding and his friend are dumbfounded by what they are seeing, and as soon as the MC grabs the sword, the other people also become very surprised. The system informs that the acquired weapon is the Black Iron Crimson Edge sword of silver level and low grade, but its special affix is Blood Drinker, since after the sword injures a monster, it can absorb the drained blood to heal the wielder's wounds. Su-ming holds it firmly and comments that the sword is very good. Then he thinks that it is perfect for the meeting that night. Yang Ding, still very surprised, comments that the MC was really lucky, and the MC in turn comments again that the sword is not bad, since it even has a life, steal effect, that will save him the trouble of needing a healer. Having said that, he points the tip of the sword at the blonde guy and emphasizes that a bet is a bet, and that therefore he will take Yang Ding's 5,000 advent coins. After Yang Ding transfers the amount he lost in the bet, he comments to the MC that he will remember him very well. Su-ming comments that next time he should not make bets with people so easily. The saleswoman watches the stats, and comments that it has been years since someone there managed to obtain a weapon from a raw stone. The MC calls her, and says that he also needs a matching scabbard, and that if he is not mistaken, it should cost 5,000 coins. She replies, yes, and asks the MC to follow her. Thus, Su-ming buys a silver-grade scabbard, whose effect is to reduce weapon durability consumption by 50% after placing the sword inside the scabbard. The MC thinks that now, with the scabbard, he can greatly reduce the weapon's durability consumption, since he does not have sufficient funds to replace his sword at the moment. At that moment, the system asks whether the MC wants to open the hidden weapon materialization function. He replies that not yet, and thinks that he will take the sword and raise it by one more grade. After a few hours, while walking through the park, Su-ming thinks that in this life, although he awakened as a god of the sword, he does not have a single usable class skill, but that in the class talent tree there is a very powerful original talent sublimation of all things, since it can improve the quality of any loot, such as combat skills, equipment, scrolls, and others, and that any item can only be sublimated or indirectly sublimated once. Thus he knows that just by having this talent alone, it is truly worthy of the golden grade class that the god of the sword represents. And after using sublimation of all things, the system informs that the weapon's sublimation was successful and it gained the bloodlust effect. Now, the weapon's name is Huan Steel, Bloodthirsty sword of high-quality silver. Grade: the blood drinker effect causes that, after the sword strikes a target, it can absorb the target's blood through attacks or contact to heal the wielder's wounds. The bloodlust effect causes that, after killing a monster with the sword, all of the wielder's stats are temporarily increased by 5 points for 30 seconds. Su Ming thinks that after eliminating an enemy, he will be able to gain a temporary buff that increases all of his stats. So he decides to open the hidden weapon materialization function and concludes that now the novice dungeon the next day will be much easier. After that, a few hours pass and night arrives. Su Ming goes to the place he had arranged to meet Ren Xiaoman and equips his sword. She soon notices his presence, and upon turning around comments that he finally arrived, but points out that he is a bit late. However, she ends up becoming confused by what she is seeing since Su Ming is attacking her. Ren Xiaoman screams loudly, and seeing that Su Ming merely struck the sword into the ground really wants to know what he is doing. The MC takes a deep breath and then says that he is there for revenge, saying this while thinking about what happened in his past life. Ren Xiaoman asks what he is talking about and comments that she accepted his confession. Then she shows some messages they exchanged and comments that it was because of that she took the initiative to ask him out and that it was he who wanted to date. Her Su Ming remains silent for a moment and then says that this was in his past life. Then he thinks that she who was recognized as the school beauty had always been a prominent figure there, and that as an orphan who never received attention from others. While growing up, he never thought he would have the chance to interact with her, and that he also certainly never thought that on the second day after the awakening ceremony, she would take the initiative to show concern. And from that day on, he received her concern, which was the attention he had longed for his entire life. Su Ming also begins to recall the confession, the dating, the intimacy, and the interactions, and concludes that those days were the times he cherished the most. Thus, he shouts that it was all fake. Then he says that he knows everything about her. Dirty. Dealings with Jiang Tong and that she was only trying to use his talent and abilities. Ren Xiaoman is surprised, but asks the MC not to dare speak nonsense. Su Ming comments that she knows very well whether he is talking nonsense or not, and that the beautiful and graceful Ren Xiaoman everyone sees is a lie, and that in reality she is just a vain, despicable, shameless bitch. Ren Xiaoman becomes furious and shouts, wanting to know what he knows. Then she calls him an orphan and makes it clear that if his talent were not worth something, he would not even have the chance to speak to anyone, and that she will not let him get away after daring to call her a bitch. Su Ming tells her to go ahead, but says that he fears she should be more concerned about how her story with young Tong will affect the pure and innocent image she has Ran. Chao Man becomes even more furious, grabs the MC's sword, and as she lunges at him, Su Ming comments that things are happening exactly as in his past life. She becomes confused when she sees a red glow around the sword. Su Ming comments that apparently she really likes sneak attacks, since he was already expecting this, thus he activates the sword's blood drinker ability, since after the sword locks onto a target, it can absorb the target's blood through attacks or contact to heal the wielder's wounds as the sword's power rushes toward her. The MC says that the trap was set for her from the very beginning when he made her the target. Ren Xiaoman is struck squarely in the face and she screams loudly in pain. Then she screams saying that her beautiful face has been disfigured. Su Ming comments that she ended up doing that to herself. Then he makes it clear that at that moment it is the time for his revenge, and that he will have Jiang Tang eliminate her. However, he begins to recall some moments with her in his past life. Because of that, he unequips his sword, and as he leaves, and she trembles on the ground, asks Ren Xiaoman to go back and tell Jiang Tang that he is welcome to come settle accounts, and that she should consider the cut she received as something caused by him before leaving. Su Ming thinks that this cut also severed that concern he once cherished at that same moment. The MC receives a message asking him to accept the gift. The gift in question is a marrow-strengthening pill, a combat gear, package, and 10,000 Advent coins. The gift was sent by Director Wong, who also left a message saying that the gift is a newbie package exclusively for the MC, since he possesses a 10-star talent, and that he hopes he can make good use of the gift and achieve excellent results in the novice dungeon after that on the next day. At 6 in the morning, Su Ming is observing the marrow-strengthening pill that the director gave him, and thinks that the old man is quite generous, and as soon as he consumes it, he thinks that perhaps the old man feels pity, that he awakened a 10-star talent only to take the sword controller class and wants to help compensate. For that, the system informs that the Constitution attribute has gained an increase of 10 points and an additional 100 experience points. With that, Su Ming is promoted to a level 2 class holder and gains 10 free attribute points. Then the system congratulates the MC for reaching level 2. Su Ming is now at level 2, with some attributes increased. And because of that, the passive talent origin sword body is activated where the heart is the source. A natural sword intent in Su Ming can learn all sword type skills, ignoring all restrictions. Thus, the MC thinks that this was already expected from his 10-star golden talent. Since he can learn a new talent as early as level 2, then he becomes confident and reflects that he can hardly wait to show everyone what he has in the novice dungeon. Later after that, in the novice dungeon area of the first, some students begin to arrive. And the MC does not like this very much, since they are calling him to form a team. Su Ming wonders whether this bunch of people were not belittling his class the day before, then apologizes to everyone and says that he already has his team. Ji Yao hears this and immediately becomes anxious, wanting to know if he really already has a team. Then she says that she arrived early, hoping to be the first to form a team with him. Su Ming looks to the side and softly tells her that it is not true. Then he explains that what he is challenging is not for ordinary contribution, rewards, and that if she formed a team with him, he would be worried that she might get hurt. Having said that, he emphasizes that he plans to challenge everything alone. She is surprised and comments that she understands. At that moment, a guy approaches asking for permission and wanting to know if the MC is the student Su Ming. Then he introduces himself, saying that his name is Yan Zi from Class 4 and that his awakened talent is the 9-star demon hunting ranger, and that he was wondering if the MC would be willing to join his team while Su Ming thinks that he remembers this guy from his past life. Jiao answers no to Yan Zi. Then she says that Su Ming has already formed a peace team with her and that he should not bother them anymore. Yan Zi comments that he did not know that and soon apologizes for bothering them. The MC realizes that Jiao is quite reliable and then thinks that the dungeon is about to open at that moment. The director asks for the students' attention and announces that the 127th Novice Dungeon Challenge has officially begun. However, a bit awkwardly, he offers his most sincere apologies and says that he overslept and could not go to the site to cheer for them, and that he can only do a live broadcast from his home to explain the rules of the Novice Dungeon. To them, he explains that the one-day Novice Dungeon Challenge is a trial that the newly awakened of that year must go through, and that each student has already been registered so they can be identified as soon. As they enter the dungeon, he also explains that inside the dungeon, each challenger will gain points and settlement rewards based on their individual contributions. And the challenges in that to ensure a high survival rate, he thinks it is better for them to challenge the dungeon in teams, and that they only need to complete the whole dungeon challenge within the day to finish the first dungeon challenge of their lives after awakening. Then he calls to them once again and comments that the moment that decides their fate has arrived. At that moment, Jiao notices that Su Ming has disappeared. The director comments that he does not want to delay them any longer and announces that the dungeon is officially open as soon as the director finishes. Saying this, something happens at the entrance, and the students begin wondering if someone has already entered. Others comment that they also saw someone entering and that it was the 10-star student Su Ming already inside the dungeon. The MC thinks that this novice dungeon seems very familiar because it suddenly makes him nostalgic, since back then he was both afraid and excited, recklessly running around just to gain more contribution points. At that moment, a voice announces to the new class, holders of Blue Star, that the multiversal massacre is about to begin and that the place there is full of danger and opportunity. Then it informs them that to leave there and receive the rewards in addition to obtaining sufficient contribution value. By killing the regular boss, there's another more difficult method, a method that the mech has in mind, and that this time he will choose the hardest challenge, which is to kill the supreme hidden boss. After that, in some part of the F level, Raging Tide, Forest Su Ming passes through the portal. Upon looking around, reflects that the novice dungeon map is random every year, and that the place is a completely different map from when he was in the same dungeon in his past life. In addition, all dungeon portal spawn points are random, so he knows that route planning is different for each challenger, and that the monsters he may encounter in the dungeon are also different. After thinking about this, and walking a bit through the area, Su Ming soon sees a monster, and thinks that it is an elite level 1, but that although it is immobile like a tree, if its vines lock onto a target, the person will be dragged into the burning. Hollow on the monster's head and roasted, thus he remembers that his goal is to challenge the hidden boss, and therefore he should try to avoid these troublesome monsters. And while he locks his reference point on the map, he thinks that since the reason he rushed to be the first in the dungeon was to recognize the route in, advance and find what he needs to challenge the hidden boss. Although he knows the map changes the way to fight the boss does not change, and that if more people enter, later it will be much harder to gather the items. After thinking about this, he dashes at full speed from tree to tree toward his objective as soon as it reaches 7:30 in the morning. A girl passes through the portal, and one of her team members comments that it does not seem like there are other challengers nearby until they are surprised to hear a very loud sound. Soon they see someone running amid the dust. That person is desperate, screaming for help, and they become even more frightened, since the guy is being chased by a giant frenzied blood rat, and the others shout for everyone to split up and run immediately outside the dungeon. The system reports the dungeon status in real time, and that at 7:31 in the morning, 3 challengers were gnawed to death by a frenzied blood rat, and that the strongest among them was a 6-star talent awakened Li de Biao. Jiao, very surprised, comments that she has not even formed a team yet, and challengers are already being eliminated. Inside the dungeon, the girl from before is running desperately, and soon realizes that she ended up separating from her friends. Then she opens the map to see where she is, because she thinks she is completely lost, until she becomes very frightened upon hearing a very loud noise. And as soon as she turns to see what it is, she sees a shadow atop a tree of a very large creature, which as it gets closer, she discovers is a monkey monster, which in turn lunges at the girl. She becomes desperate and screams for help. At that moment, a sword is raised and flies out, completely retaliating against the monkey monster, and Su Ming appears. Moments earlier, one of the competitors was quite frightened, as he was about to be attacked by an elite level grizzly bear, but he managed to run away screaming and wondering why he had run into an elite monster right at the beginning. However, his friend was not so lucky and was hit head on. The bear continued eliminating competitors, and soon some swamp hunters appeared on the battlefield, followed by tracking dogs. One of the competitors shouted that he would make a channel call and reported that the transport point at the 9 o'clock position on the map was surrounded by monsters and requested immediate support. And while emphasizing that the 6 o'clock position also needed help, he failed to notice a draconized lizard approaching from behind the members while fighting various monsters, reported that the 11 o'clock position was also compromised and that the monsters kept arriving without stopping. A girl, upon approaching a tree, saw one of her group friends defeated and immediately informed Central Command that her team of 5 urgently needed help. Afterward, she watched her friends all defeated on the ground and fell to her knees. And as her entire body trembled, she commented that she thought that if they had not been told to hide, things would be different. But at the same time, she knew that the dungeon had only started half an hour ago, and the difficulty of the novice dungeon was already far too high. She then began to question whether newly awakened students could really challenge it and come out alive, until she became quite surprised as she had just seen a student completely eliminate a huge creature so easily. As soon as Su Ming approached her, she commented that he seemed so strong. Then she remarked that he eliminated the monster in an instant and thanked him for saving her, but soon realized that the student in question was Su Ming of 10 stars. He looked back and said that he was just passing by and emphasized that he would not be able to save her a second time, since he believed that the monster that had just attacked was not yet completely eliminated. She became very frightened, wondering what he meant. However, she ran off desperately, shouting that she would go after reinforcements for him and hoping that he could hold on. Su Ming activated his eye of perception and saw that the monster was a level 3 mutant monkey king and that the creature's ability was slap. Thus he concluded that it was no wonder the creature could survive continuous attacks. From his silver grade weapon in the rank F dungeon there, the Monkey King, as soon as it recovered from the attacks, charged at the MC, who was forced to retreat and thought that the creature's speed was not bad at all, but considered it would be a great opportunity for a contest, and recalled the abilities he had inherited from his past life. He activated the 3rd inherited ability, Divine Shadow Step, an acceleration movement technique that increases speed by 50%. And at the moment it was activated, the MC became immune to all physical, magical, and spiritual attacks and could not be targeted. But it consumed a large amount of stamina while active. After having his speed increased, Su Ming charged at high speed toward the Monkey King, which in turn tried to counterattack the MC, but he managed to jump at the last instant and soon appeared behind the enormous creature. The Monkey King immediately turned to try to land another blow, but Su Ming managed to dodge again. Now facing the creature, he commented that apparently there was no need for a contest. Having said that, he charged at the Monkey King, which could only watch the MC. Approaching at high speed with little it could do, the creature was easily defeated, and Su Ming commented that he was already tired of playing around next. The MC saw in the system that he had successfully defeated the mutant Monkey King and had obtained loot, which was a low-grade linear/skill scroll. Su Ming pondered the acquired skill and reflected that, even though it was only low-grade, it was not bad. For a novice dungeon, he becomes surprised when he receives a first blood notification. Then he sees the system message informing that the level 2 sword controller player completed the first kill of the mutant Monkey King in the Furious Tide Forest, and the title granted was First Blood. At the same time, all competitors receive the dungeon achievement notification and are quite surprised, wondering if a player really eliminated a monster successfully, and on top of that, a mutant. The system also notifies that the dungeon title reward grants all players in the dungeon a small healing potion. A girl, while hiding from a monster, takes the potion she received and thinks she is safe, since she truly needed to replenish her health. Back where the MC is, he begins to hear various people throughout the forest wanting to know if the sword controller really earned a title and whether this so-called sword controller is the student Su Ming. Some people respond that it is Su Ming, that 10-star sword controller, but other competitors emphasize that it cannot be him, since there are several sword controllers that year, when including neighboring cities. But that in any case, someone completing the first kill proves that all newly awakened students have the strength to clear the dungeon. The MC does not like hearing any of this at all. Then he thinks that he forgot that the title system in the game would expose his strength. And because of that, he believes he will have to be more careful from now on and use his total concealment ability to hide as much as possible. But he did not expect that even after half an hour of dungeon time, no player had eliminated a monster yet. Thus he runs from where he is, but ends up facing several level 3 hungry wolves. Su Ming thinks this is perfect, since he has in mind that the wolf is one of the 3 classic mobs for novice leveling. So he believes he can test his new sword attack skill that he bought, especially because he knows he used his talent ability, all things sublimation, before, to improve the low-grade linear/skill scroll he obtained by eliminating the mutant monkey. His system soon informs him that the all things sublimation ability was activated and a new ability was obtained, which is sword unsheathing/in, which it is necessary to sheath the sword, focus the mind, and attack in a single soul. Strike the wolves begin to howl and move even closer to the MC, who in turn wastes no time and tests his new ability, delivering a slash that goes straight toward the creatures. After eliminating the first hungry wolf and gaining experience points, the MC continues eliminating all of them, always gaining several experience points. After eliminating them all with his new ability, the system congratulates Su Ming as he managed to gain enough experience points to reach level 9, in addition to obtaining the title Hungry Wolf Legend. Next, he looks around and thinks that using the property of Sword Unsheathing Slash, which allows long-range attacks, he can farm all the low-level hungry wolves then. He sheathes the sword and reflects that the energy generated accumulated over a certain period of time can be quite efficient. Thus he concentrates even more, and upon quickly unsheathing the sword, delivers another slash that goes toward the remaining hungry wolves. However, something blocks the attack, which leaves the MC quite surprised since an enormous creature has just appeared and repelled his attack. As if it were nothing, the creature that just appeared is the level 10 Wolf King. Some moments earlier, after some groups formed to enter the novice dungeon, Gia was excited about the group that had entered, and as soon as they passed through the portal, they were already engaged in a terrible battle against several monsters. One of the members grips the sword firmly and delivers an attack against one of the creatures, while some members are lying on the ground after defeating the monster, the Bao. Group members begin to receive shared experience, and soon the system informs them that they successfully defeated a mutant field rat, and everyone becomes excited, shouting that they finally eliminated a special monster, while one of them advanced to level 2. Another member of the group is surprised as another notification had arrived about a player obtaining a first blood on a leader monster. However, upon realizing that the player was from the fisherman class, everyone became curious about what the hell that meant, especially being at level 9. 10 minutes earlier, while the MC was fighting the Wolf King, the creature was at half health. Su Ming launches another attack at the creature's back and prepares himself again. Then he leaps, saying that the creature should not think that just because it is a Wolf King, it is a big deal. Having said that, he prepares his attack and delivers it, striking the Wolf King head on. The system congratulates Su Ming for eliminating the Silverback Wolf King and informs that he obtained 500 experience points, in addition to reaching level 10 and gaining 145 points in Sword Unsheathing. / proficiency, 100 points in Swift Thunder. Sword art proficiency and the loot obtained was the iron, cutting clawbone, and the Wolf King's heart. In another area of the dungeon, a blonde boy is trying to eliminate one of the creatures until he comments that he spent a tremendous amount of effort and finally dealt with the pack of hungry wolves. One of his friends comments that luckily the attack boost scroll rewarded by the dungeon title arrived in time. So he thinks that if it were not for that, they probably would have been eliminated young. Ding becomes irritated upon hearing about the level 9 fisherman and says that there must be some problem with the novice dungeon, as he wants to know how a life skill master could reach level 9. So quickly, since he thinks this is practically mocking them, the players having said that he slams his sword hard onto the ground, and then comments that the damage of his broken novice cleaver is very low, and that if he had not been tricked and lost money to the MC at the weapon shop, that time he could at least have obtained a silver grade weapon. The shaved head guy laughs and says that Su Ming is way too lucky, which makes Yang Ding furious upon hearing it, and he soon shouts for his friends to shut up, especially since he was the one who tanked the damage the whole time and still shared experience with them. And after eliminating so many wolves, he only reached level 2, and as soon as he thinks about the MC, he comments that he is extremely angry, but that he does not know whether he has already entered the dungeon, because if he encounters him, he swears he will destroy him and vent all his anger. Young Ding's friends ask him not to get angry, since everyone there reached level 2, and because of that, they think that if they continue farming hungry wolves, it will become even easier. Meanwhile, the MC is standing still, observing his system as it is, informing him that a primary class change task is being triggered, and that the content of the task is randomly selected based on the MC's real situation. Su Ming knows that in this life, the first class change task is still triggered at level 10, and that the most important thing is that the opportunity has arrived since in his past life. When he reached level 10, it was already after he had left the novice dungeon. Therefore, the first class change task, randomly updated, corresponded to an E-ranked dungeon of higher difficulty that he was challenging at that time, but he knew that during that period he could not complete a challenge of the same level, no matter what, and even had to spend a good amount of time grinding up to level 15 before returning to complete the first class change task, and because of that, in the end, it greatly reduced the benefits of the rewards he received from the first class change task. However, he believes that this time it will be different, because he leveled up to 10 while still inside the novice dungeon, and due to that he believes things can be different at that moment. The system congratulates the MC for triggering the first class change task, which is to eliminate the Guardian of the Red Rock Cave, a powerful elite monster. The Red Rock Cave is located within the Furious Tide Forest. Su Ming, upon seeing that the task is indeed within the novice dungeon, thinks that this makes everything much easier since he knows that next he only needs to add all the points gained upon leveling up into agility, and thus concludes that this first class change task is already in the bag. As soon as he applies the agility points, the system congratulates him once again, but now for breaking the barrier of 100 points in the agility attribute. So he obtained the skill Sword Martial Master, which is a passive skill in which the MC can equip sword type weapons of any level, ignoring all requirements. Meanwhile, in Chuanjing City at the First Academy, And in the meeting room, the person in charge of IT is informing the director that the ranking list of novice dungeon data for those with strong talents in neighboring cities has been released. The director comments that apparently some are missing from the statistics, so he wants to know where Su Ming is, the one in whom he had great hopes. The director is informed that no one is missing and that everything he is seeing is the data returned from the dungeon. Next, the person informing the director emphasizes that at 8 o'clock, the first blood title data from the dungeon showed that it was a sword controller, so he assumes it must be the student, Su Ming, whom the director cares about. The director, in turn, begins to wonder whether it was really just the first blood title. Then he comments that although the MC's class is sword controller, he was born with full 10-star attributes, and in addition, he was given a novice gift, pack, and therefore even if he lacks skills, he thinks he should be able to eliminate some monsters using brute force alone, so he wants to know how he cannot even be in the top 500. At that moment, someone forcefully opens the door of the meeting room, wanting to know what the situation is. It is the vice mayor of Xuanjing City, and Ranling, who comments that the director had said the school produced a very good seed that year, and therefore wants to know if it is the 10-star awakened, named Su Ming since her secretary already showed the novice dungeon data, and the Yo. Student Su Ming, whom the director recommended, is not even on the list. The old man asks the vice mayor not to get agitated, and emphasizes that although Su Ming has 10-star talent, his class is sword controller, so he thinks his combat power at the beginning of the game will be somewhat weaker. Ranling begins to shout that even if the MC is a sword controller, she thinks it is impossible for him not to even make it into the top 500. So she asks the director to stop trying to explain himself, because she thinks he simply lied about the student's strength to obtain more qualification tokens for the Celestial Tower Councils that year. The director becomes terrified and tries to explain that he really did not lie, but the vice mayor continues saying that, based on the current data she has, the director's school only has Yanzi with 9-star talent, hidden class, demon hunting ranger currently in second place on the leaderboard, so she thinks he is the best candidate to compete. With the genius from the neighboring city that year, Randling also, but she already has her eye on someone else. Zhang Tong, the golden boy of the Zhang family, who unlocked the ultra-rare Magic Hammer Warrior class. Rocking an 8-star rating and currently sitting at number 4, his potential is off the charts. Because of this, she lays down the law right now. She can only hand over 2 qualification tokens for the Celestial Tower Council to the director. Director Wang pushes back, asking why every school isn't getting 3 tokens, like they always do. But Ranling just walks away, firing back that nobody forced his academy to bomb the rankings lately. She makes it crystal clear, if they hit rock bottom again next year, they can kiss their slots goodbye. For the Celestial Tower Council. The old man desperately asks what happens if his students crush it in the upcoming trials. The vice mayor brushes him off, saying they'll cross that bridge when they come to it, and claiming she's swamped with work, she storms out. A heavy silence suffocates the room, but as Director Wang glares at those 2 measly tokens, he reminds everyone that the Celestial Tower Council is their lifeline for snagging epic quests, raking in massive rewards, and boosting their combat power. Bottom line, the Academy absolutely cannot afford to lose their VIP pass to the Council. He was banking on their 10-star awakened prodigy to score them an extra token, but instead they got robbed of 1. Now the director is praying that Su Ming goes all out and doesn't let him down. Cut to our guy, Su Ming. He just pulled up to the gaping maw of the Red Rock Cave. His map screams that the quest objective is inside, and lucky for him, he didn't run into a single annoying mob on the journey here. Stepping into the damp shadows, he realizes he never explored this dungeon in his past life, leaving him totally blind to what might jump out of the dark. Suddenly, a harsh screech echoes out. A greedy gold-digging goblin leaps into view, locking eyes with our hero. Su Ming doesn't even blink. He blitzes forward and slaughters the creature in 1 clean strike. He knows he can't let this ugly runt sound the alarm and wake up the whole dungeon. But the system instantly flashes Goblin Cave alert triggered. He stands there totally dumbfounded. He literally one-shot the monster in dead silence. Before he can process it, the ground rumbles as dozens of footsteps scramble toward him. Reality hits Su Ming like a truck. This first-class advancement quest is way more brutal than he thought. A swarm of grotesque monsters pours out from the tunnels. The system blares a warning. The Red Rock Cave goblins are going into an absolute frenzy against him. While slicing through the front line, Su Ming smirks, recalling that goblin mode usually means acting like a shameless lazy slob in modern society, living completely guilt-free in greed and mess. But these guys are out for blood. With 0 options left, he turns into a whirlwind of steel, butchering them non-stop. Yet the pressure forces him to fall back, realizing that even though their levels are trash, they are swamping him with a relentless tidal wave of bodies. He glances at his blade, sweating over whether its durability will survive this massacre. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over him, and he spots a gargantuan brute swinging down with bone-crushing force. Su Ming launches himself backward by the skin of his teeth, dodging the deadly slam. But the goblin archers instantly knock their arrows, locking onto him, while he is vulnerable mid-air. A deadly volley of arrows rips through the cavern. He desperately whips his sword around to parry the barrage, but the rain of steel is just too thick, and he ends up taking a few nasty hits. Slamming back onto the rocky floor, Su Ming tactical rolls away, cursing these surprisingly smart freaks. They actually figured out that mid-air targets can't easily dodge or pivot, Seeing him stagger, the horde screeches and stampedes at him with zero mercy. He braces his weapon, trying to tank the chaotic onslaught, but panic starts creeping in. His early game mana pool is way too pathetic to spam his divine shadow step for much longer. And just when things couldn't get any uglier, a fresh squad of terrifying elite goblins marches into the fray. He realizes that right now he is basically running on empty when it comes to flashy skills, making it absolute suicide to fight this army head on. Trusting his gut, he blasts off the ground, deciding that mobility is his only chance of survival right now. He starts weaving through their strikes like a ghost sprinting at breakneck speed. After tearing open a massive gap between them, he watches the rabid mob still giving chase. Smirking, he starts channeling raw energy into his blade. He taunts the ugly runts, daring them to bring it on. The goblins suddenly freeze in terror as a blinding explosive light erupts from his sword. Reaching max power, Su-Ming unleashes his devastating sword, unsheathing slash. A shockwave of pure destruction rips forward. The monsters don't even have a second to raise their shields before they are brutally vaporized. Su-Ming kicks through the ashes, calculating that as long as he controls the high ground, this dungeon is a total cakewalk. Unleashing another brutal horizontal cleave, he realizes he can spam his quick draw technique to absolute perfection here. After massacring waves of the green runts, our guy finally hits the brakes in front of the terrifying elite grade. Goblin Captain smirking that this big boss is the only one left standing. Meanwhile, just outside the blood-soaked Red Rock Cave, one of Yang Ding's lackeys is creeping around the entrance. He whispers that while scouting the trail, he heard violent clashes echoing from deep within the cavern. Yang Ding scoffs, telling his buddy to stop acting crazy. He pulls up the system interface, pointing out that this dungeon is swarming with level 7 and up nightmares. He aggressively demands to know what lunatic would actually dare enter that meat grinder. But the bald thug doubles down, swearing on his life that someone is definitely throwing down inside. Suddenly, the blonde punk's jaw hits the floor as a shadowy figure approaches, and he stutters out that "holy crap." Someone is actually walking out alive. The shaved-head goon aggressively demands to know who the hell has the guts to grind levels in there. That's when Yang Ding's eyes practically bug out of his skull, recognizing our MC, the absolute legend who humiliated him during that weapon shop bet. Su-Ming strolls out, swiping through his system, thinking that his first advancement quest was a hell of a thrill ride, but also insanely lethal. Before he can catch his breath, he spots something in his peripheral vision. Yang Ding is sprinting at him like a rabid dog swinging for the kill. Su-Ming casually sidesteps the ambush, leaving the blonde punk completely stunned. Recovering his footing, Yang Ding violently screams for his squad to box the MC in, vowing not to let his prey slip away this time. Trapped in the middle of the gang, Su-Ming just smirks, making it dead clear. Backing down wasn't even on his mind. Yang Ding snarls that Su-Ming cost him a fortune a few days ago, spitting out that our guy only has his own rotten luck to blame for bumping into them today. Our boy is totally clueless, staring at them, like they grew a second head, wondering who the hell these guys even are. The blonde kid, his jaw practically hits the floor in pure disbelief. The bald dude scoffs, realizing Su-Ming completely blanked on their faces. This just pisses off Yang Ding, who explodes screaming that our hero actually forgot about snatching those 5,000 advent coins from them. Blinded by rage, Ding and his crew charge straight at him, but Su-Ming, he just smirks. Drawing his blade, he casually mutters that it is the perfect time to test drive his brand new toy. Instantly, he triggers sword control. The blade leaves his hand moving like a living phantom, ripping through the air with a blinding flurry of slashes. In seconds, Ding's entire squad hits the dirt, howling in absolute agony. Su-Ming watches them writhe, extremely satisfied with his deadly new trick. He keeps the weapon dancing midair, while the blonde kid stammers in pure shock, desperately trying to comprehend how this kind of magic could even exist. Su-Ming commands the blade to hover high above them, while the terrified blonde blurts out that a technique like this requires a swordmaster to be at least at the intermediate stage. What they don't know is that our guy scored this god-tier trick from a silver-grade scroll, a sweet little drop he snagged right after butchering the goblin captain. Thanks to his completely broken all things sublimation talent, he actually boosted that same scroll straight up to gold-grade status. And when he finally cracked it open, hitting the jackpot was the last thing he expected. The sword control skill dropped, and man, it fit his combat style like a custom-made glove. He smirks, realizing that once this insane stunt goes public, the whole world is going to be dead, certain he is a legit sword controller. But the real prize, after wiping out the goblin horde and clearing Red Rock Cave, he looted a secret blueprint. This bad boy revealed the exact coordinates for the final chest tied to his very first-class change mission. The second he unrolled that mysterious parchment, his eyes went wide. The system chimed in, pinging the ultimate treasure's location as Red Rock Cave Part 2. Things got super weird when he read the twisted subtitle of the quest, Goblin Trade and Life. Meanwhile, deep within a totally different sector of the woods, a squad of fierce girls is celebrating their latest monster hunting victory. Panting but smiling, one of them cheers that they completely wiped out the local mob spawn. She proudly mocks the haters who claimed an all-girl party would get crushed out here. Still, she admits they totally owe their lives to their 7-star awakened friend for hard-carrying the raid. Now, it is time for the best part, dividing the loot. One of the girls cheerfully skips over to inspect the monster drops. Glancing back, the blonde leader softly asks her teammate if she needs a breather. The girl smiles, promising she is perfectly fine. But right then, the powerful 7-star awakened, suddenly freezes. A chilling realization hits her. Where did the loot gatherer go? Her blood runs cold as a blood-curdling shriek violently shatters the silence. Panic sets in as she whips her head frantically, scanning the dense shadows. Where the hell did she vanish to? She was just grabbing the items, heart pounding. She rushes toward the massacre site only to find absolutely nothing. The ground is completely bare. Trembling with raw terror, her mind spirals trying to process the impossible right before she unleashes. An ear-piercing scream that echoes through the entire forest, cut back to our MC who is casually scrolling through the system, reading up on some seriously nasty goblin lore. These freaks love the shadows hiding out in damp, disgusting places like forgotten ruins, deep underground tunnels, and overgrown woods. Because they absolutely hate sunlight, these dark pits are perfect for dodging predators and setting up lethal blind spot ambushes. Worse, they never hunt alone. They swarm in nasty little clans, always commanded by a ruthless chief or a twisted elder. Under this boss, you've got warriors, scavengers, hunters, and even wicked shamans. It is a highly organized nightmare with flawless teamwork. But reading further, Su Ming uncovers a sickening truth. To keep their numbers exploding in these brutal environments, the goblins will violently abduct female creatures of literally any species to use as breeding stock. Their breeding cycle is terrifyingly fast. A female goblin only needs 1 to 3 months to pop out a new litter, making their population growth completely unnatural compared to normal monsters, and their maturity rate just as cursed. A newborn freak turns into a full-grown adult within just 1 or 2 short years. Once mature, they immediately join the horde, creating an endless, horrifying loop of spawning, mutating and breeding all over again. Our guy gags a little at the twisted lore, brushing it off, until he suddenly spots the glowing waypoint on his minimap. He squints, super confused. The last dungeon had a massive, obvious cave entrance. But here, nothing but endless, creepy trees. He scans the dense brush, wondering if the system completely glitched out his coordinates. Suddenly, a faint rustle echoes through the thick, creeping fog. Without hesitating, he flips on his eye of perception, cutting through the illusion and catches a glimpse of a tiny, ugly creature lurking nearby. A low chuckle escapes his lips. Suddenly, the pieces click. He realizes exactly why this hellhole is called Red Rock Cave Part 2. Everyone naturally assumed it was tucked into a mountain, but the truth, it is a literal buried treasure. This entire nightmare is an underground sinkhole. As he slowly slips into the abyss, he has to give the monsters credit. They are incredibly sneaky. They actually pumped out toxic fire smoke just to camouflage the drop-in. Landing softly in the gloom, he grips his sword fully on guard. He mentally notes this brilliant trick, knowing that if he slaughters even a single scout down here, he will trigger the whole damn hive just like before. And right now, he is strictly here to rob the vault. But then through the shadows, he spots a paralyzed girl sprawled across the dirt. He guesses she stumbled right into the toxic smoke trap. Seeing this up close, he realizes these green bastards are just as vile as the legends claim. Creeping deeper into the tunnel, a horrific scene unfolds. Another survivor desperately shrieking and sobbing, begging the monsters to stay away. She collapses completely cornered by the drooling swarm. Su Ming narrows his eyes. Another challenger survived perfect timing. If she acts as live bait and distracts the mob, it will be a total cakewalk for him to sneak in and loot the ultimate chest. Sorry, kid, but survival of the fittest. She has nobody to blame but herself for diving into a savage dungeon without the stats to back it up. He is ready to walk away when her hysterical screaming catches his ear. She's crying out that she quits begging for a savior, swearing to pay a massive fortune to anyone who bails her out. She even drops a massive flex, shrieking that her big sister is the untouchable vice director of the Jiang'an financial conglomerate. Right as she screams this, the vile creatures lunge at her, triggering an agonizing, soul-crushing scream that rips through the cavern. So, Su Ming manipulates his blade, driving it violently into the earth to bait the goblin horde. Vaulting into the air, he channels his sword control. The weapon smoothly glides from its scabbard, erupting with a blinding radiance. Our protagonist triggers the plundering slash, amplifying the glow into a searing flash that completely disorients the monsters. While the panicked creatures scramble away, Su Ming analyzes their subterranean habits. He plans to weaponize their sensitivity to light, knowing the radiant surge. From his unsheathed strike packs a blinding punch. As long as he avoids executing a single goblin, he figures he is in the clear. Right then, the exhausted girl collapses onto the dirt, gasping that her legs are totally giving out. Su Ming remains on high alert, desperate to avoid waking the rest of the den, and upon spotting that the pursuing pack has vanished, he smirks, realizing his glowing trap worked flawlessly. Zhang Yuncheng breathes out a massive thank you and introduces herself. Staring at her, Su Ming realizes she is the exact match from the photograph he spotted. Back at the armory, playing it cool, he tells Yunqing to save her gratitude, claiming he was merely passing through the area. She begs him to hold on, promising a massive real-world payout the second she logs offline. Already walking away, our guy coldly tosses back that she should worry about surviving first. Yunqing sprints after his fading silhouette, begging him not to abandon her. Su Ming snaps at her to back off, pointing out he just rescued her neck once, and that judging by her pathetic stats, she is nothing but dead weight. Suddenly, a jarring notification pops up on his interface, pinging a hidden treasure, buried right under his feet. Tearing into the dirt, he mutters that those trailing goblins are surprisingly still missing in action, and ensures the coast is completely clear. It only takes seconds for our boy to unearth the stash. He instantly recognizes this zone's ultimate drop, a randomized silver tier gacha chest. Without missing a beat, he activates his all things sublimation talent to force an upgrade. The moment the skill kicks in, a brilliant aura blinds Yunqing. She stares in sheer disbelief as the silver box in his palms morphs into a low-tier gold gacha chest. Remember, these loot boxes are notorious for spitting out overpowered artifacts, rare skill tomes, or legendary armor sets, and as the golden lid cracks open, both hold their breath in anticipation. The system chimes with a massive congratulatory banner revealing he just bagged the Shadowflow gear set and a soul healer ability scroll. Su Ming stands totally paralyzed. He grumbles about grinding his absolute hardest through the initial class advancement quest, just to pull this bizarre combo. Sure, the Shadowflow armor looks fairly solid, but he is absolutely clueless about this platinum tier soul healer scroll. It is a wildly overleveled drop that severely clashes with his current build. Blushing slightly, Juncheng nervously wonders if the loot algorithm bugged out because of her presence, confessing that she just awakened as a 7-star soul healer. This revelation hits the MC like a truck. Instantly, a party invite forces its way through that, slotting Yunqing into his squad and crowning him as the team captain. Meanwhile, around 9 o'clock inside the dungeon, a rogue player is mercilessly slaughtering rookies to speedrun his own class upgrade quest. Surrounded by a mountain of fading avatars, he flashes a psychotic grin. With barely any survivors left, he coldly declares that the weak are destined for the graveyard, demanding the next victim step up. Ji Yao braces herself, manifesting her undead minion. Time ticks by agonizingly slowly. As she scrambles to lose the psycho trailing her every move, scaling a jagged cliff face, she prays the shadows keep her hidden. The hunter stalks inches away, completely blind to her spot. But disaster strikes when her boot snaps a loose piece of gravel, echoing through the silence. His eyes snap to her position, and he launches himself upward like a missile. Ji Yao backflips to dodge the lethal strike, but the razor edge grazes her forearm, drawing fresh blood. The assailant chuckles, genuinely shocked that a fragile little bird lasted this long in his hunting grounds. He complains she has burned through a massive chunk of his schedule. Still, he offers a twisted compliment, admitting she has some serious evasion skills, proving Xuanjing Academy is not entirely pumping out worthless trash. Zhao glares back, demanding his motives, noticing his crest belongs to Wujing Academy from the rival city of Wuyang. Ji Yao screams, demanding to know why an outsider invaded her district's starting zone just to massacre innocent rookies. He bursts into manic laughter, shrugging off the drama. It is nothing personal, just a messed up level 10 advancement quest, forcing him to rack up a 50-player kill streak. Ji Yao's blood runs cold at the twisted requirement. The killer smirks, explaining he could not exactly butcher 50 locals in his own backyard without sparking a massive manhunt, so he had no choice but to charter his private jet over to their tutorial zone, treating it like a personal shooting gallery. He mocks her to aim her anger at her own school for breeding the weakest targets in the entire sector. Lunging forward for the kill, he roars that predators always hunt the easiest prey. Zhao frantically casts her summoning spell, pulling a skeletal warrior from the dirt, but as the psycho smashes into her undead guardian, he sneers that her pathetic toys cannot even tank a single hit from his blade. Smirking, he vows she won't slip away this time. His weapon pulses as he triggers the piercing blood blade, launching a lethal strike right at her face. But just as the blow is about to connect, Ji Yao spots a sudden flash. A perfectly timed counterstrike shatters the rival student's attack, and out of the dust, several figures step forward. It's her backup. They shout that they've got her blind spots covered. Glancing over, Ji Yao immediately recognizes her former classmates. Leading the charge is Yanzi. Meanwhile, in a completely different area, Su Ming gets a glowing system prompt to hand over the treasure fragment. He smirks, knowing this seals the deal. The quest is finally done. A golden notification chimes in his head, confirming his very first class awakening is a total success. A surge of power rushes through him as he officially ascends to the first tier of the Sword God class. Every single stat instantly jumps by 10 points. But the real jackpot, his origin sword body talent, just evolved. Its passive effects are absolutely insane. His blade damage doubled, his striking speed also doubled. And on top of that, his skill mastery rate skyrockets by 3 times. Gripping his hilt, Su Ming realizes he now has a very real shot at crushing the dungeon's hidden boss. Suddenly a gasp breaks his focus. Yunqing is staring wide-eyed at her holographic interface, and curious Su Ming peeks over her shoulder. She just triggered the Soul Healer scroll, and unlocked an ultra-rare platinum tier ability called Soul Surge. By sacrificing a little soul power, this crazy buff activates, granting the entire squad a massive 200% experience boost. Su Ming practically shoves his face into her screen, completely dumbfounded by those wild numbers. A triple experience multiplier. That is downright broken. Staring at the rich girl, he realizes she just blindly pulled a god-tier grinding buff. Her luck is off the charts. A brilliant idea flashes in his mind. Leveling a finger at Yunqing, he casually declares that he's shifting gears. "You wanted to carry through this zone?" he asks. "Fine, you've got a deal." Her face lights up like a Christmas tree. She enthusiastically babbles about how her sister's pricey mercenaries got butchered in the Goblin Den. But trailing behind a monster who soloed that exact nightmare, She knows she just scored the ultimate bodyguard. Su Ming exhales a long, tired breath. Honestly, he despises spoiled heiresses who just throw cash at their problems. But to leech off that sweet, sweet experience buff? Yeah, he's willing to swallow his pride. Suddenly, a direct message from Ji Yao pops up, making his blood run cold. Back at the bloodbath, the rival academy student is tearing through Ji Yao's squad. With a lazy flick of his wrist, he slaughters yet another defender, like they are nothing. Looking up the killer spots, a shimmering demon-sealing arrow rocketing straight for his chest. He merely yawns, batting the magical projectile away with the flat of his blade. Yanzis grits his teeth, absolutely terrified that his ultimate sniper shot was brushed off like a pesky fly. "No!" screams one of the squad mates. Seeing his brother fall in a pool of blood, he blindly charges forward in a desperate rescue attempt. Big mistake. The piercing blood blade arcs through the air, slicing him down in a heartbeat. Panting heavily, Ji Yao realizes this psycho is entirely out of their league. Yanzi's voice shakes. "They're gone! He wiped the whole front line." Ji Yao grips her weapon, stunned that Wujing Academy bred such an absolute monster. But Yanzi drops a darker truth. He isn't the only one. He reveals that before entering this beginner zone, he dug into the rival school's roster. His intel was crystal clear. The blade-wielding freak standing over their friends' corpses. That is the undisputed prodigy of Wuyang City. Li Chen Guang, a 10-star innate talent rocking the ultra-rare blade maniac hidden class. Wiping the blood from his cheek, Chen Guang chuckles, noting that only the 2 runts are left standing. "You guys seriously wasted my time," the psycho groans, checking his kill quota stuck at 35 out of 50. Yanzi knocks an arrow, whispering a grim warning to Ji Yao. As a squishy ranger, if he can't kite this lunatic, they are dead meat. Ji Yao bites her lip, admitting her mana pool is completely drained. Without magic, her undead meat shields are offline. Panic setting in, Yanzi frantically asks if anyone is coming to save them. Ji Yao's mind drifts to the warning text she fired off to Su Ming. Lowering her eyes, she quietly says nobody is coming. Catching their despair, Chen Guang bursts into a sadistic laugh. "Aw, looks like the little piggies are all alone." With an explosive dash, he rockets forward, screaming that the pesky archer dies first. But Ji Yao dives right into his path. Crossing her arms to take the brutal impact, she screams for Yanzi to run for his life. Crash Chen Guang's heavy strike sends her reeling. Mocking her sacrifice, he snarls that trash like her doesn't get to play the hero. Defenseless and shattered, Ji Yao squeezes her eyes shut, waiting for the fatal blow. Clang. Out of nowhere, a high-speed blade streaks through the air, perfectly parrying the execution strike. Her heart skips a beat, Su Ming looming on a nearby ridge, his silhouette cuts through the dust. "You okay?" he calls out before glaring at the enemy. She has every right to save her friends. His mind flashes back to her frantic text message. She had explicitly warned him that the 9 o'clock zone was a total death trap. She begged him to stay far away to keep him safe. Staring at her battered form, memories of his past life come flooding back, how she always threw herself into hellfire, just to keep him breathing. Watching history repeat itself in this timeline, seeing her backed against a wall, and remembering how she tried to warn him away, Su Ming realizes his fiercely loyal friend will always put others before herself. I told you not to come here," Ji Yao stammers, coughing up dust. But before she can finish, she freezes in pure awe. Su Ming slowly steps past her, drawing his weapon with lethal intent. "Stop worrying about everybody else for a second," he mutters, his eyes locking onto their prey. Su Ming flashes her a reassuring smile, silently vowing to keep her safe. Right then, Chen Guang spots the hero's blade hovering midair and questions if this is some kind of telekinetic sword art. Gripping his hilt tightly, Su Ming launches himself at Chen Guang, swinging his weapon with deadly silence. As the villain parries the heavy blow, Chen Guang demands to know if this kid is the rumored 10-star sword master. Su Ming's eyes darken with pure rage, pouring every ounce of his strength into the clash, as he roars, asking if this bastard is the one who dared to lay a hand on Ji Yao. Watching from a distance, Yanzi is absolutely blown away, declaring he will back up their unstoppable ally now that victory is actually in sight. Suddenly, Yanzi gasps in pure shock as a warm energy floods his veins, rapidly restoring his health. He whips around to find his mysterious savior Yun Qing, who pants out that she is Su Ming's party member. She barely manages to introduce herself before collapsing to her knees, gasping for air, yet stubbornly insisting she's got their backs with her support magic. Yanzi rushes to her side, grinning, as he mentions that having a medic on the squad is an absolute game-changer. Trembling and breathless, Yun Qing nervously admits she's still a total rookie, with her restorative powers, and just needs a quick breather. Watching this unfold, a pang of jealousy hits Ji Yao, who blurts out, "Wait, didn't he swear he would never join a team? How does he suddenly have a partner?" Bathing in the healing aura, Yanzi guiltily apologizes to Yun Qing for dragging her into this mess, but begs her to speed up the process, terrified that their hero might get ripped apart, taking on Chen Guang solo. The exhausted medic simply shakes her head, telling him to relax, completely baffling the sniper. As the soothing green light pulses from her hands, she confidently states that Su Ming is an absolute beast. Back in the fray, our protagonist unleashes a relentless hurricane of strikes, suffocating Chen Guang, without giving him a fraction of a second to breathe. The villain struggles to survive the onslaught, sweating bullets, as he realizes this kid possesses god-tier footwork. something a standard swordmaster shouldn't have. The moment Su Ming pauses his relentless barrage, both fighters slide back to catch their breath. Smirking, Chen Guang admits that this insane power is exactly what you'd expect from a 10-star prodigy, confessing that the boy's sheer brute force completely blew his mind. He grips his weapon tight, declaring that today will finally prove who truly reigns supreme. Li Chen Guang, the 10-star blade maniac of Ouyang City, or Su Ming, the legendary 10-star swordmaster of Shuang Academy. Hearing that title, our hero's mind races. He instantly recognizes the name. This guy was an absolute titan in his previous life. They never crossed paths back then, and running into him so early in this timeline is a wild twist of fate. A fierce grin spreads across Su Ming's face, and as he dashes forward, he mocks, saying he'll see whether his sword is sharper, or if Chen Guang's blade is tougher. He swings with devastating force, but the maniac expertly deflects it. Instantly retaliating by triggering his piercing blood blades, Su Ming scoffs, wondering if this fool seriously thinks tossing simple throwing knives will work effortlessly, swatting the projectiles away. But the maniac erupts into sinister laughter. "You fell right into my trap, kid," he sneers, triggering a paralyzing hex that completely locks Su Ming's muscles in place. Seizing this golden opportunity, the ruthless villain hurls another lethal dagger straight at the frozen hero's chest. Fighting through the paralysis, Su Ming forces his mental link to connect, summoning his blade back. In a split-second flash of genius, he drives the weapon straight down into the dirt, sparking a massive deafening shockwave. The explosive recoil shatters the binding spell, instantly letting him sidestep the fatal throw by a literal hair. Smirking through the smoke, Su Ming coldly announces that playtime is officially over. He whistles for his blade and commands it to blitz the maniac from behind, taunting him to parry a magical strike with absolutely no weapon in hand, with no way to defend himself. Chen Guang takes a brutal hit directly to his spine. Coughing up blood, the villain grabs a spare dagger and blindly lunges forward, screaming that Su Ming is the one empty-handed now, but the hero merely chuckles, triggering his divine shadow step. While the maniac unleashes a frantic flurry of his chaotic shadow, 5 blades, Su Ming flawlessly weaves through the lethal whirlwind like a ghost. Furious Chen Guang roars, demanding to know how this brat's agility spiked so insanely. Raising his hand, Su Ming laughs out loud. "Sorry to burst your bubble, but my weapon is already back." Meanwhile, the newly healed Jiao and Yanzi sprint forward, desperate to back up their friend, but slam on the brakes when they see the two warriors frozen like statues. Heart pounding, they frantically wonder if the brutal deathmatch is over, and who walked away alive, until their faces light up with pure awe as the mighty Chen Guang crashes hard onto his knees. They realize their boy actually crushed this terrifying juggernaut. However, just as Su Ming drops his guard, a sinister blood-red aura violently erupts around the kneeling villain's body. Yunxing spots the deadly glow and screams at the top of her lungs. The hero snaps his head back just in time to see the maniac lunging at him with explosive velocity, cackling that he got way too cocky. Yanzi, Yun, Qing, and Ji Yao watch in absolute horror as the villain buries a devastating, bone-crunching blow straight into Su Ming's gut. Wasting 0 seconds, the maniac unleashes his ultimate slaughtering art, the swift blade of the tropical forest. In an instant, a storm of lethal slashes swarms our hero from every conceivable angle. Laughing like an absolute psychopath, Chen Guang screams, "Welcome to my meat grinder, kid!" Terrified for her best friend's life, Ji Yao hysterically tries to charge into the kill zone, but Yanzi tightly grips her arm, begging her to snap out of it. He yells that throwing herself into a master-level execution field is basically just committing suicide. Thrashing wildly, Ji Yao sobs and screams at the sniper, violently ordering him to let her go. Even facing elimination, she's absolutely determined to risk it all to save Su Ming. That is, until the MC's voice cuts through the chaos, ordering her to listen closely. Ji Yao is completely baffled, but he sternly warns her to stay back, just as Chen Guang violently lunges forward. The attacker is utterly bewildered. How could his target survive a brutal barrage of blades? But his shock turns to sheer dread when Su Ming's chilling voice echoes out, asking if he's absolutely certain that his strikes actually landed. Chen Guang freezes. The voice isn't coming from in front of him. Stabbing into the MC's body, he realizes the terrifying truth. It's nothing but a phantom clone Su Ming. Materializes from the shadows, mocking the guy for taking so long to catch on. He chuckles, betting Chen Guang never dreamed a basic sword controller could pull off a stunt like this. You see, our MC is completely decked out in the full dark sword armor set, a devastating gear combo that, when fully equipped, infuses every single sword skill with lethal dark attribute damage, a sinister force that completely bypasses any physical defense. The armor also grants an overpowered ability called Shadow Clone, projecting a hyper-realistic decoy to absorb incoming strikes. But that's not all. While this phantom is active, every attack the user makes triggers a vicious follow-up slash. This phantom strike packs a punch equal to 50% of his base damage. Slowly stalking toward Chen Guang, Su Ming casually reveals that this nightmare is simply his armor's hidden trait. Panic washes over Chen Guang's face. He stammers that it's completely impossible to farm a full set inside a beginner dungeon, realizing there's only one logical explanation. Trembling, he asks if the MC has already awakened his first class advancement. Su Ming smirks, praising his lucky guess, and casually admits he crushed his primary class. Promotion quest ages ago. Fueled by pure desperation, Chung Guang spins around, launching a frantic counterattack, screaming that the MC just got lucky with his speed. But Su Ming isn't playing games anymore. He mercilessly blitzes his opponent first. Staggering from the devastating blow, Chung Guang hurls a brilliantly glowing object straight into the air, catching Su Ming totally off guard. The radiant light intensifies, violently exploding into a blinding flash that completely wipes out Su Ming's vision. Watching from the sidelines, Yan Zi gasps, realizing that blinding artifact is a hyper-rare, life-saving trinket. Confused Zhang Yunqing asks him to explain. The archer breaks it down. It's an absolute lifesaver, a desperate escape tool that instantly teleports a player out of the dungeon when death is staring them in the face. And this isn't some cheap loot you just stumble upon. This specific artifact costs hundreds of thousands of advent coins on the black market. Hearing this, Su Ming realizes that the rival city is clearly desperate to protect their precious 10-star prodigy, willing to burn an absolute fortune to keep him alive. Fast forward to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, where the Academy's lead data analyst gasps in shock at her monitors. Chewing on his lunch, the Academy director glances over, asking what's got her so spooked, and if she finally cracked the bow. Live leaderboard feeds inside the dungeon. Shaking her head, she frantically points at the screen, reporting a massive anomaly. Deep in the dungeon's western zone, right between 12 o'clock and 12:30, the system logged a massive wave of brutal player eliminations. The director raises an eyebrow. What's so weird about some rookies getting wiped out? Didn't they just stumble into a nest of high-level monsters? Not even close, she replies, her voice trembling. The raw data clearly proves these students weren't killed by beasts. They were utterly slaughtered by another player, an invader originating from entirely outside their city's borders. The director's jaw drops. His eyes narrow as he mutters that, once again, the neighboring district is pulling some incredibly shady tricks. Slamming his fist down, he orders her to lock down and encrypt all of those combat logs immediately. He furiously explains the stakes every city is currently locked in a vicious race to conquer their beginner dungeons first. And unfortunately, since their Xuanjing Academy has been falling behind the pack, they've painted a massive bullseye on their own backs. Shaking off the frustration, he pivots, demanding a real-time status report on their frontline assault teams. The analyst rapidly types away, confirming that their overall progression is actually solid. Their students have successfully secured the majority of the warp zones and the fragmented visual feeds reveal their heavy hitters, already rallying a massive raid party to breach the final boss chamber. And spearheading this elite strike force is none other than the Zhang family's golden boy, the devastating 8-star magical hammer warrior, Zhang Tang. A proud smile crosses the director's face. As expected, that blonde powerhouse is an absolute monster of potential. Just a few hours ago, the kid was sitting at level 6. Considering the beginner dungeon's final boss peaks at a menacing level 12, and given the massive amount of experience from leading a mega raid, the director is absolutely certain Zhang Tang has got to be pushing level 10 by now. He crosses his fingers, praying the young prodigy can obliterate the dungeon boss in record time and restore their academy's shattered reputation. Right on cue, a second data technician calls out from across the room, shouting that the newly refreshed live server leaderboards have just dropped. Grinning, he confirms the director hit the nail on the head. Zhang Tong is currently sitting comfortably at level 9, just inches away from breaking into the double digits. But there's a catch. He is currently deadlocked in a tie for the #1 spot, hearing his star pupil is sharing the crown. The director rubs his chin, guessing the challenger must be the sharpshooter Yanzi. The tech nods enthusiastically, adding that 2 more familiar names are dominating the 2nd and 3rd place slots. It's none other than the prodigy necromancer, Ji Yao, sitting pretty at level 7, and the ultimate support healer, Zhang Yunqing, holding strong at level 8. The director's brow suddenly furrows with anxiety. He leans in, asking if the system picked up any trace of a student named Su Ming. The technician nervously scans the glowing monitors, admitting that in the upper echelons of the leaderboards, Su Ming's name is completely missing. Frowning, the director orders him to run a manual search and pull up that specific kid's current level immediately. A heavy silence falls over the room as the tech frantically types. When the results finally pop up, his jaw drops in total disbelief. He stutters, revealing that Su Ming is somehow still stuck at level 2. The director's eyes practically bulge out of his head, demanding to know how the hell that is even mathematically possible. Swallowing hard, the tech explains the impossible reality. The server logs show that ever since Su Ming secured the dungeon's very first kill, his experience bar hasn't moved a single inch. Later at 2:30 in the afternoon, a system chime rings out. Su Ming stares at the glowing notification, confirming he totally crushed the elite spiked tooth beast. And thanks to that massive kill, he skyrockets straight to level 14, unlocking a sick hidden armor set appearance. Ji Yao's jaw drops. She can't believe they've only been grinding for a little over 2 hours, and they've already skyrocketed in power. Yanzi chimes in hyped that he just hit level 10. He boasts that they're totally ready to wreck the dungeon boss. He points out they only leveled up this insanely fast, thanks to Yunqing's insane experience buff, and that they owe her big time. But Yunqing shakes her head. She spins around, giving all the credit to Su Ming for handing her such a broken skill in the first place. Ji Yao beams, realizing just how stacked their squad really is. Between Yunqing pumping out heals and XP and Yanzi dropping pinpoint sniper damage, she jokes that her only job is spawning cute little pets for cover. But honestly, the real game changer is having a beast like Su Ming leading the charge. Su Ming just laughs it off. He tells them to stop holding back. They earned this power, and he's just along for the ride. Ji Yao squints at him. Are you being sarcastic right now? She knows the dark truth. If he hadn't swooped in to save their necks, they would have been instantly slaughtered by Chen Guang's ruthless blade. Her mind flashes back to that heart-stopping moment when Su Ming threw himself in the line of fire. He had clashed with Chen Guang, matching his raw power, blow for blow, blushing slightly, her voice dropping to a shy whisper. She admits that watching him fight was just incredibly badass. Riding that wave of hype, she's absolutely convinced their squad could crush the main dungeon. Boss right now, without breaking a sweat, Su Ming nods. She isn't wrong, but he flashes a sly grin. Too bad I'm not aiming for that basic boss. Pulling out a strange glowing key, he drops the bomb. He's going after the ultra-rare hidden boss. This water ripple key was the lucky drop. From that dead spiked tooth beast, he breaks it down for them. To drag the hidden boss out of the shadows, they have to crack 3 cryptic riddles guided by the dungeon's code and gather 3 specific relics. Right on cue, the system chimes with the first clue. When the silver moon hangs over the shore, the blue waves split and the crimson armor slumbers in the heart of the freezing abyss. Su Ming smirks. There's no dynamic weather in a beginner zone. So, logically, that massive eerie lake stretching out right behind them is the exact spawn point. Instantly, the system spits out riddle number 2. The lake water shifts to mist, guided by iris petals. Beneath the drowning sands, the armor upholds the ancient oath. Su Ming's eyes light up. He planned for this. Ever since they first set foot in this hellhole, he had already snagged the trigger item, the iris. Flower from the monkey zone. He knows that mashing this flower together with the water ripple key is the exact answer to the third and final riddle. He grips the star pattern key, letting it reflect the dark waters. The final clue echoes. 9 ripples encircle the stone. The knight leans upon his blade, craving the light to pierce the murky tides. The second Su Ming locks the pieces together. A blinding, pulsing aura erupts from his hands. Gotcha, he mutters. The lake aggressively churns. A massive, violent whirlpool rips open the water's surface. A booming voice echoes from the depths, bound by the blood oath. And summoned by starlight, I rise. An ominous silhouette pierces through the waves as the haunting chant continues. The crimson night, entombed in the icy depths, shatters his watery grave. Red warning sirens flood their vision. The system screams that the hidden boss has awakened, the lake guardian, the lost knight, Yan Zi. And Ji Yao instantly party up with Su Ming, taking the captain's spot. Weapons hot, guys, get ready, he barks. And just like that, the system declares the hidden boss deathmatch has officially started, but cut to 15 minutes later. The entire squad is sweating bullets hiding in the brush. A chilling system alert flashes. The Crimson Knight is actively hunting for blood. Yanzi swallows hard. Is cowering in the bushes really our best play here? Ji Yao shifts nervously, asking if they should just risk another frontal assault. Su Ming's gears are turning, calculating every angle. He points through the leaves. Tell me how we kill that. The boss is a blur of speed on horseback. Pulling up the monster's live stat screen, they freeze. The knight's mount speed is a staggering 500 points. Plus, he's level 19, 301 strength, 250 constitution, 102 agility, 103 spirit, 10 luck, and a level 5 heavy armor mastery. Su Ming grimaces. If you add all of our speed stats together, we wouldn't even hit half of his pace. Suddenly, terrified shrieks tear through the forest canopy. The knight is mercilessly hunting down random players. They're sprinting for their lives, screaming for backup. But that demonic horse is way too fast. The boss tramples them, slaughtering them without breaking a sweat. Blood sprays as the knight continues his massacre deep in the woods. Su Ming's squad listens to the brutal fading screams. Yan Zi shudders. Man, I'm pretty sure that's the third squad he's completely wiped off the map. Yunqing bites her lip, guilt washing over her. We triggered this nightmare. We need to take him down fast. Right now. Just then, Ji Yao bursts through the bushes, panting heavily. Done? She gasps, locking eyes with Su Ming. Wiping sweat from her forehead, she confirms they've drained every single mana potion they had to rig. A massive snare trap, Su Ming gives her an approving nod. Perfect. He signals Yanzi and Yunqing to stick to the master plan. Looking at the carnage, Su Ming realizes something in his past life he never even attempted this boss. Because honestly, no sane awakened would ever dare summon a secret boss right out of the tutorial zone. Since players only get one shot at the beginner dungeon in their entire lives, practically no one has ever witnessed the true form of its hidden boss. The secret to cracking this encounter only exists in scattered cryptic lore. Luckily, Su Ming memorized every single word. Still, even he didn't. Let's expect this secret boss to spawn riding a warhorse boasting a massive 500 speed stat. To take this monster down, they absolutely have to unseat him. Su Ming throws the signal. Yanzi instantly draws his bow, unleashing his multi-hunting shot right at the knight. The arrows scream through the air, but the boss effortlessly swats them away with a single lazy sword swipe, immediately triggering his heavy armor mastery. Watching from the cliffside, Yanzi realizes the knight's armor mastery must be maxed out at level 5. His volley barely left a scratch, but right at that moment, the Blood Lake Guardian locks its terrifying gaze. He's straight onto the archer, realizing he just pulled full aggro. Yanzi frantically screams out to Yun King. Getting the memo, she drops low and furiously and blows into the campfire she just built, sending thick choking smoke billowing across the battlefield. Su Ming watches closely. Step 1 is playing out perfectly. Yanzi uses his precision archery to bait the boss right into their trap. Step 2 relies on Yun King flooding the knight's path with a massive smokescreen to completely blind him, since he knows this dirty little trick was picked up back in the goblin lair. The armored giant charges blindly into the dense forest, desperately hunting for the archer, only to end up completely swallowed by the suffocating haze. Suddenly a chilling sound pierces the fog. A horde of skeletal warriors lunges from the shadows, violently clawing at the warhorse. Up above, Ji Yao triggers her delayed trap release. And as the 3-minute and 25-second countdown begins, she can't help but marvel. If Su Ming hadn't coached her, she never would have figured out how to fuse a massive army of basic summons into one devastating trap spell. Down below, the knight viciously slashes through the bone warriors, desperately fighting to stay in the saddle. But right then, a lethal presence creeps up his spine. Yun King instantly fires off her magic absorption's slowing art. Lurking in the shadows, Su Ming mentally checks off Step 3 using the skeleton. Ambush pre-planted by Ji Yao to cripple the warhorse, perfectly layered with Yun King's snare magic to entirely paralyze the boss in his tracks. Even the insanely overpowered MC has to admit, without his team's flawless execution, soloing this nightmare would be nearly impossible. Seeing his opening, Su Ming blasts out of the smoke. He latches onto the knight's armored arm with a death grip, uses his momentum to brutally kick the frantic horse away, and violently slams the towering boss straight into the dirt. As the dust clears and the heavy knight struggles to rise, Yun King cheers that their dismount strategy actually worked, but Ji Yao quickly snaps everyone back to reality. This is barely phase 1. A quick flashback to 10 minutes ago reveals the catch. When Su Ming first pitched this wild strategy, Ji Yao warned that draining her and Yun King's mana pools to 0 just to kill the horse meant they would be totally useless for the actual boss fight. But Su Ming just brushed it off, confidently claiming that dragging the boss through the mud was more than enough and he would handle the rest. Snapping back to the present, Su Ming stares down the armored giant and firmly tells his squad to stand down. A cocky grin spreads across his face as he explodes forward like a bullet. Heavy steel clashes against swift blades as the two titans trade a flurry of devastating blows. They break apart for a split second before violently clashing again in an insanely high-speed duel. Watching from afar, Yanzei is absolutely mind-blown that Su Ming is actually trading blow for blow with a secret raid boss all by himself. Gripping his bow, the archer refuses to just sit on the sidelines, but Ji Yao grabs his shoulder. She reminds him of Su Ming's strict orders. They have to trust him, and more importantly, they have their own critical job to do. Back in the meat grinder, Su Ming triggers his divine shadow step, instantly teleporting right behind the hulking knight. In a fraction of a second, he unleashes a blinding hurricane of sword strikes, with his speed buffs constantly stacking. The MC doesn't give the boss a single inch to breathe. As he carves into the armor, Su Ming mercilessly taunts the giant, laughing at how agonizingly slow and pathetically weak he's become without his precious ride. A quick glance at the boss's stats proves it. Without the warhorse, the knight's speed has plummeted to a measly 55 points. Delivering another brutal cleave, Su Ming smirks. Realizing this so-called nightmare boss is just a glorified punching bag, channeling explosive energy into his blade, he roars at the monster to vanish from existence. He drives his weapon forward for the kill shot, but his eyes widen as the blade clangs uselessly against the outrageously thick armor. The boss's health bar hasn't even chipped. Seizing the opening, the enraged knight violently swings his massive broadsword. Barely reacting in time, our MC backflips out of the deadly swipe. Suddenly, a glaring red system alert flashes in his vision. His weapon's durability has tanked to a critical 7%. Gritting his teeth, Su Ming realizes that this shattered durability is completely nerfing his damage output. That ridiculous heavy armor passive is becoming a massive headache. Meanwhile, the towering knight snaps his helmet towards the tree line, sensing a disturbance. He aggressively stomps through the brush, scanning the canopy until he spots the MC perched high up on a thick branch. Su Ming knows exactly why. The boss is desperately trying to whistle for his ride, knowing damn well his only chance at winning is his mounted speed. Flashing a wicked smirk, the MC loudly mocks the knight, telling him his precious pet has already been hijacked by his squad, cutting to a clearing miles away. The massive demonic warhorse is violently thrashing and bucking against its captors, digging her heels into the dirt. Ji Yao fiercely screams at the beast to just give up, vowing there is zero chance they let it run back to its master. Fighting to hold the ropes, Yanzi yells over the chaos, begging Yun King to keep spamming her slow debuffs on the frantic animal. Through the sweat and struggle, a wild laugh escapes Ji Yao's lips. She passionately reminds the team that holding this steed hostage is their ultimate purpose today, because Su Ming trusted them with it. Her mind flashes back to the tactical huddle, replaying his intense gaze as he laid out the final phase of the master plan. He had promised that once the heavy hitter hit the dirt, he would solo the actual boss fight. All they had to do was play keep away with the damn horse, and make sure he never mounted up again, snapping back to the absolute war zone. Su Ming dives from the canopy, unleashing a devastating draw/slash. The sheer force of the impact triggers a massive shockwave, but the terrifying boss instantly counters by firing off the exact same insanely powerful skill. As the duplicate attack blasts toward him, Su Ming frantically leaps backward to dodge the explosion, panting as he realizes with a grin this brainless chunk of armor actually knows how to chain combos. Spinning around, he catches the boss winding up for a crushing blow, but he instantly triggers his sword control skill, deflecting the knight's heavy strike at the very last second. As he keeps his blade floating in midair, a system alert flashes warning him that his weapon's durability has plummeted to a critical 3%, undeterred. Su Ming pushes the offensive, planting a brutal kick right into the knight's chest. Knowing he can't afford to waste even a fraction of his blade's remaining lifespan, he scans the boss using his eye of perception. He realizes the monster's heavy armor is on the verge of shattering, so seizing the moment while the giant is staggered on the bow. Dirt, he commands his floating sword to deliver the killing strike, but this plays right into the knight's hands. Watching our protagonist charge, and the boss reads his moves perfectly. Finding the opening it craved, the monster snatches him by the throat, swinging its free arm for a devastating counterattack. But suddenly, the hulking creature freezes in sheer confusion as its prey vanishes into thin air. Stepping calmly out from the forest shadows, Su Ming smirks, noting that this decoy trick works wonders on both players and mindless beasts alike. With a confident grin, he fully activates his gear, muttering about how much he loves this setup. As the enraged boss spins around to rush him, Su Ming unleashes his sword control, scoring a flawless direct hit on the armored knight. Hearing the satisfying crunch of the monster's heavy plating finally breaking apart, he launches himself at the enemy. But in that split second, a blaring system alert warns that his weapon's durability has hit 0 and his trusted blade shatters into pieces. Su Ming, however, doesn't even blink. He's already winding up his trump card, execution. Fast forward 1 hour later. Over at Shuangjing Academy, inside the dim administration comms room, the staff announces Director Wang's long-awaited arrival. The veteran principal chuckles, noting that his fellow directors have clearly been chatting in the network channel for quite a while. One of the men brushes it off, saying the rest of them just logged in a few minutes ago, and that Wang is simply the last to show up. He casually shifts the topic, asking if absolutely no one from Shuangjing Academy has stepped up to fight the final dungeon boss yet. After all, following their yearly tradition, the clear times always start rolling in right after 3 in the afternoon. The man smugly reminds Wang that since his school places dead last every single year, it's perfectly fine for him to drag his feet and show up late to the meeting. Wang snaps back, clarifying that his delay had nothing to do with dungeon runs. Lowering his voice, he reveals that he was busy analyzing a stream of live real-time data pouring in from deep inside the instance. He grimly announces that foreign players have secretly infiltrated Shuangjing Academy's beginner zone. Even worse, while the true identities of these masked intruders remain totally unknown, he directly questions the other principals, demanding to know if their top students are sneaking around his territory to stir up trouble. Pinning his gaze on Director Shi, Wang outright asks if he orchestrated this mess. The casualty reports clearly show his students were slaughtered by a mystery fighter wielding advanced sword techniques, and everyone knows that Wuyang Academy's prized prodigy, Li Shengguang, is a deadly master of the blade. Furious at the accusation, Shi barks at Wang to stop spewing baseless garbage without hard proof. He aggressively clarifies that his star pupil Cheng Guang is entirely occupied. Right at this very second, the boy is leading the vanguard assault against their own beginner dungeon's final boss. Shi confidently brags that his prodigy will conquer the zone in under 30 minutes. Meanwhile, the head of Dongling Academy chimes in, bragging that they already have 3 high-level squads grinding down the raid boss. Not wanting to be left out, Nang Academy's director proudly states that his elites are locked in a vicious late-stage fight with the monster, expecting the victory notification to pop up any minute now. Hearing this, Director Wang silently grits his teeth. It's blatantly obvious the rival schools are crushing their boss raids, meaning right now, they are trapped in a desperate race against the clock. If Shuangjing fails to secure the first clear this season, he dreads they will be penalized with a mere 2 entry tokens for the Celestial Tower Council. That would be an absolute historical disgrace for his school. Sweating under the pressure, his mind flashes to Zhang Tang. As it stands, the rich kid is the only player even remotely close to taking down the boss. So for now, Wang has no choice but to bet everything on that arrogant student's combat power. 15 minutes later, deep within the boss room, Zhang Tang is screaming his lungs out, barking desperate orders for his squad to push forward and spam every single cooldown they have. They absolutely have to melt this monster down right now. But the Raging Tide Forest King, a terrifying level 15 beast named Shinba, spots a tiny gap in their formation. With one earth-shattering swipe, the creature instantly wipes out half of Zhang Tang's front line. As the enraged beast goes on a rampage, tearing through the survivors, a panicked teammate screams at Zhang Tang to fall back, crying out that they are completely outclassed. It's a suicide mission. Their average level is just too damn low to survive this raid encounter. But the blonde rich kid glaring up at the towering monstrosity refuses to back down. They've already bled too much to reach this room. His eyes burn with greed, knowing the beginner zone's ultimate clear rewards belong to him alone. Suddenly, his mind flashes back to the desperate text messages he got from Xiao Man. She had been crying for help, whining about how our protagonist humiliated her, and begging her blonde knight in shining armor to make him pay. Driven by ego, Zhang Tang vows to snatch the legendary loot over the boss's dead body, and then personally crush the guy who made his crush cry. Gripping his weapon tight, he squares up against the roaring giant, ready to risk it all. He braces for battle, but utter confusion strikes as the boss dissolves right in front of his eyes. He stands there completely stunned, wondering what on earth just happened, until a blinding system alert pops up for all the dungeon challengers. He stares in pure disbelief. The glowing text declares the impossible. The legendary hidden boss has been completely obliterated, and every single player must prepare to evacuate the zone early. Rewinding just a few minutes, Su Ming flashed a triumphant smirk. He had absolutely crushed the knight right as his newly formed squad reached the battlefield. Their jaws hit the floor. They stared in pure shock, realizing our main character had completely soloed the secret boss. Meanwhile, over in the command center, the administrators buzzed with excitement as the final rankings dropped. Everyone started wildly cheering for their own academies. But Director Wang, his eyes locked onto the massive monitor, and his jaw dropped. His very own university had snatched the ultimate victory. The rest of the board completely lost their minds, screaming that the results had to be bugged completely unaware. A secret boss even existed in a beginner zone. Back inside the treacherous labyrinth, Zhao bounces with absolute hype. She grabs her friend, practically screaming about how insanely overpowered Su Ming is. He simply notes the massive experience drop. Slaying that knight forced everyone to instantly jump 2 full levels. Our boy is sitting comfortably at level 16 now. Wasting no time, he rallies the squad, urging them to capitalize on the locked exit gate. It's time to split the epic loot drop by the secret monster. Yanzi immediately steps back, waving his hands. He firmly rejects any share, insisting that the massive level boost is already way more than he deserves. Yunqing nods eagerly, backing him up, and deeply thanks our hero for literally saving her life. The archer chuckles nervously, pointing out that from dodging Li Chengguang's deadly blade to exposing the hidden monster and ultimately carrying the whole fight, the archer himself was basically useless. He didn't lift a single finger. Taking any treasure now would just feel completely wrong. But wait! His jaw drops as a golden system prompt suddenly flashes right in his face. He's just been awarded the Putrid Spirit Suppression Bow. There's a catch though. It's locked behind a harsh level cap. He can't actually wield this beast until he hits level 20. On top of that, it strictly demands a ranger class with elite archery skills. This legendary weapon packs the spiritual suppression trait. By burning through mana, every single arrow launched from this string will trigger wild randomized magical buffs. Yunqing isn't left empty-handed either. She scores the stunning Heart-Soul Necklace. This beauty instantly boosts her maximum mana capacity and massively speeds up her energy. Recovery. As for Zhao Shay, hits the absolute jackpot with the Blood Armor Undead Summoning Scroll. Once she masters this dark magic, she can literally conjure the terrifying hidden boss itself, the Blood Armor. Undead Knight. Its brutal strength and battle level will perfectly scale with her own stats. Su Ming flashes a warm smile, pointing out the obvious. As the squad can clearly see, these epic drops are completely tailor-made for their specific character classes. Reflecting on the insane bloodbath they just survived, he earnestly breaks it down for them. This incredibly specific loot pool proves one massive point. It's not just him acknowledging their crucial teamwork in taking down that terrifying monster. The system itself literally respects their hustle. He looks them dead in the eye, admitting a hard truth. If this squad hadn't backed him up, he never would have survived that hellish raid. Suddenly, a booming mechanical voice echoes through the cavern, praising the warriors for conquering the Rank F Furious Tide, Flower's dungeon. It officially logs their brutal survival run at exactly 8 hours and Sassu, 20 minutes. Su Ming dusts off his gear casually, noting that the clock has finally run out. It's time to head home. Right on cue, massive glowing rift tears open right behind the crew. Striding confidently toward the swirling vortex, Su Ming explains the final mechanics. All the personal experience points and bonus rewards will automatically calculate the second they step back into reality. A personal escape gate will spawn for every single survivor still breathing. He throws them an encouraging glance, demanding they hold their heads extremely high. Pausing at the threshold, he flashes one last grin. The fact that they're all walking out on 2 feet makes this a flawless victory. Cut to 4:30 in the afternoon. The world broadcast officially confirms the mass extraction. The aftermath is absolutely heartbreaking. Students collapse into tears, sobbing over slaughtered friends, shattered brothers, and lost romances. Whispers echo through the crowd. 20 bright-eyed rookies marched into that abyss, but only 5 crawled out. Yanzei's voice trembles as he realizes the grim reality: his entire squad got wiped out. He's the lone survivor, just like Zhao and Yunqing. Su Ming cuts through the grief, brutally laying out the cold, hard facts. Since the cataclysmic awakening, this is their new reality. They live in a savage society, ruled by the strong, governed strictly by the law of the jungle. The apex predators feast on the weak. He preaches that the only way to avoid the Reaper is to relentlessly grind, push past your limits, and claw your way to the top of this twisted food chain. While he drops these harsh truths, countless rookies are absolutely breaking down, screaming at the heavens over their fallen comrades. Su Ming doesn't flinch. He highlights the sick duality of their era. While half the crowd mourns shattered families and bloody graves, the other half is foaming at the mouth, with joy high off the bow. Insane wealth and god-tier abilities they just inherited. To him, this whole system is nothing but a twisted, psychotic game. Suddenly, Director Wang's face dominates the Jumbotron. He proudly claps for the battered rookies who clawed their way out of the bloodbath. His booming voice reminds them that this nightmare was merely their baptism, the very first hurdle after unlocking their powers and diving into this ruthless hunter society. It also serves as the final brutal exam the Academy will ever force upon them. His tone shifts, turning deeply serious. He commands these new graduates to engrave one concept into their souls. Gaining superhuman abilities isn't just a license for you. Endless cash, shiny medals, and terrifying dominance. It's a heavy, unbreakable vow of responsibility. You fight to protect what you love and force peace onto a chaotic world. He tells the sobbing survivors to let the agonizing grief of their fallen friends completely consume them, burning the trauma into their memories. Meanwhile, the victor standing tall must shoulder the massive burden of protecting humanity. Zhao tugs at Su Ming's sleeve, staring into his eyes. She softly asks what's actually running through his head right now. Does this cutthroat survival of the fittest reality make him sick to his stomach, or is he thriving in the madness? He barely blinks. With a totally straight face, he calmly drops a bombshell. Every single student butchered in that trial is about to wake up. Back on the screen, the director holds up a finger, silencing the crowd. He's got one final twist to deliver. To fully cap off this traumatic lesson, he's finally pulling back the curtain on the actual purpose of the beginner trial. He grins, announcing that every single fallen comrade, sibling, and soulmate will magically respawn in exactly 30 minutes. They'll walk straight out of those gates unharmed. Absolute silence sweeps the plaza, their brains practically short-circuit, completely paralyzed by this reality-breaking twist. Zhao whips her head around, her eyes bulging as she stares at Su Ming. How the hell did he predict that scene change? The system wraps up calculating the gruesome combat stats and kicks off the massive loot distribution phase. And the glorious scoreboard highlights our boy Li Guangran, whose legendary killing spree consisted of exactly 3 angry bunnies and a single backwards feathered chicken. A grand total of 4 pathetic mobs. She got wiped out. Her total dungeon contribution, a measly 0.03%. Her payout was a pitiful 16 Advent coins. Player Song Juet took down a single sharp-clawed cat, earning a total contribution of 0.06% and bagging 22 Advent coins. After handing out these scraps to the background characters, it was finally our main character's turn to shine. Su Ming slaughtered 113 gray-backed wolves, a hulking mutant monkey, 24, minor goblins, a brutal elite goblin, 87 spiny-toothed beasts, 13 elite spiny-toothed beasts, and to top it all off, a massive hidden boss. On top of completing his primary class change, he blasted through the damage-free zone of the Red Rock Cave, snagging the Dungeon First Blood title. The system flashed a blinding rank S for his final evaluation. He even unlocked the Rookie King title, which supercharges every single attribute by an extra 15 points and boosts skill proficiencies gains by a solid 10%. In total, he dominated with a staggering 91%. Overall dungeon contribution. Meanwhile, deep inside the information room, Director Wang stared wide-eyed at Su Ming's insane clear screen, muttering that the kid was running late. Speak of the devil. Su Ming strolled right in. The director instantly praised him for snagging the absolute #1 spot in both the Academy and City leaderboards for this novice dungeon. Our boy casually brushed it off, yawning that he just overslept. Suddenly, the giant system board flashed the official level rankings for Xuanjing City's novice dungeon. Sitting on the throne was Su Ming at level 16. Trailing behind in second place were Jiang Tong and Yanzi at level 12, followed by Yun Qing at level 2. 11 and Zhao dragging in 4th at level 10. Looking at the board, Su Ming realized that crushing the novice dungeon meant his high school days were officially over. He figured he didn't even need to lay low anymore, knowing he could easily tweak his public stats. After all, from this day forward, the power gap between him and these basic classmates would stretch for tens of thousands of miles. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by something weird grabbing him. He looked down to find the director practically drooling desperately, clinging to his leg. Flustered, Su Ming demanded to know how long the old man Dao planned on holding him hostage. The elderly principal burst into happy tears, thanking our guy from the bottom of his heart. He sobbed that whatever crazy method Su Ming used, he had finally dragged Xuanjing Academy out of the absolute gutter, letting them vent years of humiliation and finally reclaim their glory. Wiping his eyes, the director bragged that, the moment the final scores dropped, that arrogant old Sai from Wuyang Academy was left completely paralyzed with shock. That jerk used to roast everyone at the inter-school meetings, so the director was dying to see if he'd ever dare to talk trash again. Curious, Su Ming asked where that so-called prodigy from Wuyang Academy, Li Chen Guang, actually placed. The director smirked, revealing that the hyped-up, manic blade genius everyone bet their life savings on crashed hard, landing in miserable 3rd place across all academies. Su Ming grinned at the news, but the old man leaned in, whispering that rumors were flying around. Apparently, Li Chengguang got wrecked in a brutal dungeon accident and suffered massive injuries, which completely ruined his boss clearing time. Changing the subject, the director's eyes narrowed with burning curiosity. He begged to know how on earth Su Ming managed to slaughter the hidden boss. Because even with a mythical 10-star talent, the truth remained, Su Ming was just a sword controller. A class notoriously garbage in the early game. Plus, knowing his background, Su Ming didn't come from some rich, influential noble family. He definitely didn't have the cash to deck himself out in divine tier gear. The old man slammed the desk, emphasizing that in all his decades of teaching, he had never witnessed a student this mind-blowing. He knew for a fact it wasn't because of those cheap starter items he handed out after the awakening ceremony, since those trinkets barely boosted combat power at all. Our protagonist just chuckled smoothly, brushing it off as pure luck. He claimed he just stumbled upon some incredibly overpowered skills and rare loot. The director nodded enthusiastically, agreeing that the novice dungeon was packed to the brim with legendary treasures. Playing the humble card, Su Ming added that he also bumped into a fantastic squad of teammates, and swore that without their backup taking down that hidden boss would have been impossible. In his head, though, he smirked. There was no way in hell he was going to reveal he was actually a reincarnator. Director Wang beamed, praising Su Ming for not just being a god, tier awakened, but also a brilliant natural-born leader. But then the old man mentioned that the other top-ranking students had already dropped by to claim their top 5 loot, and that Zhao literally couldn't stop fangirling over him. She kept raving about how insanely overpowered he was during their team-up. Hearing this, Su Ming sighed, mentioning she had actually texted him earlier, asking to go together, but he hard passed. He knew exactly how that girl operated. She would shower him with so many embarrassing compliments, since overpraising people was completely her style. Right at that moment, the director flicked a mysterious glowing emblem through the air, the Heavenly Tower. Council token. Catching it effortlessly, Su Ming stared at the heavy artifact in his palm as the cool. Director proudly explained the lore. Because Su Ming absolutely vaporized the competition, the snobby vice mayor who always treated Chuanjing Academy like garbage was forced to strip tokens away from the elite academies and hand them straight to them. Thanks to this epic flex, their school secured 5 exclusive slots this year, gifting tokens to him: Jiao, Yanzhe, Yunqing, and Jiang. Tang clearing his throat, the old man prepared to deliver a grand speech about the immense power of the Heavenly Tower Council token. But our guy quickly cut him off, waving his hand, saying there was absolutely no need for a tutorial. He already knew the deal. The Heavenly Tower Council was the ultimate holy grail for every single newly awakened on the planet. Normally, the moment a student survives the novice dungeon, they graduate and get thrown to the wolves in the brutal real world of the awakened. He knew damn well that the average weakling had to settle for grinding low-tier beginner-level dungeons for months. They had to play it painfully safe, crawling up the ranks step by agonizing step, where the death rate was terrifyingly high and their leveling speed was absolute trash. But holding a golden ticket to the Heavenly Tower Council, that changed the entire game. Anyone gripping that token unlocked a lightning-fast VIP training channel, and while the deadly trials inside were completely unpredictable, the enhancement rewards pour in thick and fast. Su Ming remembers all too well how his past life played out. Missing out on the Heavenly Tower Council qualification early on completely crippled his momentum, leaving him trailing in the dust of elite players right from the jump. Scavenging for leftover resources just wasn't enough back then. But this timeline, it's a whole new ballgame. He's going to ruthlessly exploit every single advantage and fortify himself for the bloodbath ahead. Back in the present, the director shakes our hero's hand, proudly declaring his official graduation as a fully awakened student of Chuanjing Academy. Yet his tone shifts as he lays down a grim warning. The training wheels are off. Unlike the novice dungeon, future trials will not offer a reset button. Out there, failure means death, and they only get one shot to gamble with their very lives. Su Ming absorbs every heavy syllable. The older man softens, expressing his deep hope that this hidden genius will carve out a legendary future and reshape the world. Flashing a subtle smirk, Su Ming grips the director's hand in gratitude. Meanwhile, deep inside the opulent, upper-class district of Zhuanjing City, inside a sprawling estate, double doors slam open. A distinguished man screams out for Yun Cheng. He rushes over, wrapping his daughter in a desperate embrace, praising the heavens that she made it back alive from the brutal novice zone. Thrilled that she snatched 3rd place overall, he brags that Zhang Lan's hired muscle must have been worth every penny. But the girl shakes her head, admitting that the mercenaries deserve 0 credit. The real savior was a lone awakened student named Su Ming. Her father's eyes widen in sheer shock, demanding to hear every detail. Yun Cheng confesses that her sister's elite guards blundered straight into a lethal monster ambush, leaving her stranded and moments away from a gruesome end. Just as all hope vanished, Su Ming descended like a force of nature. He didn't just rescue her, he showered her with top-tier skill manuals and elite gear, practically carrying her to level up and conquer the trial. Stepping in, Zhang Lan reveals she actually tried to hire Su Ming right out of the gate to protect Yun Cheng, but things got heated, and he flat-out rejected a mountain of cash. Looking back on that tense standoff, she shakes her head in disbelief. Who could have predicted that destiny would bind her sister and this rogue, so tightly throwing them together in the darkest depths of the dungeon? Because of that insane luck, they owe him their lives. The patriarch chuckles, noting how completely obsessed his girls are with this mysterious Su Ming. He declares they must track him down and roll out the red carpet to show their gratitude. And awakened with that kind of raw talent is someone he absolutely needs to meet face to face. He orders Jiang Lan to dig up the kid's contact info instantly. To celebrate his daughter cheating death, he proudly announces he is bringing in a world-class chef for a massive family feast. Suddenly his phone buzzes, shattering the mood. He snaps at the caller, barking that he is completely booked and doesn't give a damn about any urgent meetings. But the voice on the other end freezes the blood in his veins. Paling instantly, he bolts for an empty hallway, demanding the caller repeat the horrifying news. The trembling voice drops a bombshell. Over the last 2 days, a shadow squad of assassins has been systematically slaughtering their operatives. Furious, the patriarch demands a name. The answer hits him like a freight train. It's the Zhang family. The revelation leaves the old man utterly paralyzed with dread. Cut to 2 days later. Ji Yao is screaming through the receiver, fiercely reminding Su Ming that the schedule is locked, and they are breaching the Heavenly Tower dimension together today. She strictly forbids him from pulling another lone wolf stunt. Su Ming casually brushes off her panic, stating he has spent the last 2 days perfectly stockpiling every single thing he needs. Promising to rendezvous shortly, he cuts the line. His mind instantly drifts to the enigmatic Heavenly Tower Council, echoing Director Wang's crucial instructions. To access the legendary realm, all he has to do is ignite the access token. This mystical artifact rips open a dimensional rift straight to the council grounds, a gateway that rejects anyone without elite authorization. Gripping the cold metal of the token, our hero hoists it into the air, flooding it with energy. Instantly, the system chimes, verifying his identity. A blinding surge of light erupts, tearing the fabric of space to reveal a swirling vortex. Su Ming's pulse skyrockets, totally hyped to plunge headfirst into the brutal gauntlet waiting on the other side. Crossing the threshold, he steps directly onto the hallowed grounds. As the spatial warp fades, his vision clears and the ultimate battlefield reveals itself. He finds himself staring up at the colossal 100-story monolith. He has finally set foot in the absolute domain of the Heavenly Tower. Staring up at the sheer scale of it, Su Ming smirks. In his previous life, he only managed to crawl his way here years down the line, blindly stumbling in by pure dumb luck. Sweeping his gaze across the chaotic plaza, he watches beams of light flash non-stop as elite warriors from every corner of the country warp in. Adrenaline courses through his veins. Getting a second shot to conquer this nightmare structure is going to be incredibly thrilling. Striding up to the massive entry gates, he flashes his credential for the scanner. A split second later, a mechanical hum confirms his clearance, and the heavy blast doors slide apart. He is instantly taken aback by the sea of awakened packed inside. A glaring system prompt orders all fresh blood to stand by in the main concourse for the initiation. Brows furrowed, Su Ming realizes something is off. The architecture doesn't match his memories at all. Scanning the vast perimeter, he concludes that this version of the lobby is massively upgraded and expanded. Suddenly, a familiar voice cuts through the crowd. Ji Yao and the squad push their way over, huffing that he finally decided to show his face. Su Ming chuckles, teasing them for eagerly arriving at the crack of dawn. Flustered, Ji Yao crosses her arms, complaining that they have been rotting in the waiting area for hours. She demands to know why he is so fiercely addicted to flying solo. Su Ming playfully reminds her that he literally agreed to this team-up, grinning as he calls them his actual friends. Ji Yao softens, agreeing that surviving the absolute hell of the novice zone forged them into blood brothers. Taking a serious tone, she reminds him that out of their entire academy, only their squad clawed their way to the Heavenly Tower. Stepping into completely uncharted territory means anything could slaughter them, making it absolutely vital that they watch each other's backs. Without warning, a savage battle cry rips through the air. A manic Zhang Tong barrels straight at Su Ming, throwing a lethal haymaker. Su Ming casually sidesteps the strike. The furious blonde spits venom, screaming that they seriously forgot he was part of the squad too. The surrounding crowd instantly erupts into whispers, hungry for a brutal brawl, as Ji Yao immediately, shouting to ask what Zhang Tong's actual problem is. The furious blonde snaps back that it is all because of what our MC did to Xiaoman, and swears he is going to settle the score right then and there. He complains that Su Ming hid like a coward during the novice dungeon, making it impossible to track him down. The blonde then sneers, admitting he never expected our guy to actually snag the qualifications to enter the Celestial Tower Council. Intrigued by the blonde throwing Xiaoman's name around, Ji Yao immediately asks what went down, but Su Ming simply tells her to keep cool. Turning to Zhang Tong, he warns the hothead to drop the drama about Xiaoman, making it crystal clear that they will not be settling any grudges today because combat is strictly banned in the safe zone. Right on cue, a booming voice echoes from above, announcing that a conflict has been detected. Suddenly, a massive bolt of lightning blasts Jiang Tang right out of his shoes. The robotic voice coldly states that absolutely no behavior disrupting the Celestial Tower Council's order will be tolerated. Crumpling to the floor, the blonde glares up and warns the whole MC not to get cocky, swearing he will not escape. Su Ming just chuckles, pointing out that the higher-ups are watching their every move, promising that once the Celestial Tower Council wraps up, they can finally settle their beef for good. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure lurks in the distance, silently observing the entire showdown. Hearing the commotion, the surrounding crowd starts whispering. They realize that even though the massive hall looks completely empty, invisible eyes are tracking their every single move, proving that surviving the Celestial Tower Council is going to be way more complicated than a walk in the park. Brushing off the drama, the MC gestures for his squad to follow him. Ji Yao looks confused, asking why they're wandering off, when the opening ceremony has not even kicked off yet. She argues they should just hang back, wait for the green light, and read through the challenge guide like everyone else. Su Miming smirks, explaining that they do not need to waste time standing in line to read some basic guidebooks. That amateur move is strictly for clueless rookies, and the real secret is actually hidden right in the seats. Ji Yao raises an eyebrow, completely fascinated, and immediately asks if he has secretly been here before. Dodging the question, he just tells his crew to pay close attention. He reveals that all they have to do is claim a chair and sit in dead silence for a few moments. Following his lead, her eyes go wide with shock. The MC breaks it down, explaining that the Celestial Tower Council's hidden selection menu will instantly pop up the second their bodies hit the chairs, right on cue. A holographic system screen flares to life, welcoming the fresh challengers to the Sky Tower. Association's brutal initiation, the 100-layer tower challenge. Seeing this massive cheat code, the rest of the squad instantly grabs their seats, watching their own system notifications light up. Su Ming mentions that while he is actively climbing and crushing the stages, conquering the ultimate 100-floor gauntlet will directly lock in their final evaluation and dictate their official rank once they fully enter the game. Ji Yao tilts her head, asking if this whole thing is basically just a massive race to the top. The MC nods, confirming she nailed it. He stresses that pushing into the insanely dangerous higher floors guarantees a massive boost to their final ranking, but drops a reality check if multiple players clear the exact same floor. The leaderboard will be decided by brutal speedrun times and the raw difficulty setting they chose. Ji Yao crosses her arms, realizing that at the end of the day, every single second counts on that ticking clock. Su Ming smiles, praising her sharp instincts. He notes that this early seat trick just put them miles ahead of the pack, because these boring opening ceremonies are actually a trap set by the Sky Tower Association to weed out the weak. It perfectly tests a rookie's battlefield awareness and adaptability, proving they just want to see who can read the room, hack the rules, and take immediate action. With the masterclass over, he casually looks at his three friends and asks if they want to squad up and blitz the tower together, just like their epic run in the novice dungeon. Yun Cheng instantly nods, yes, totally relieved. She knows sticking with an absolute beast like him is the safest bet, especially since the Celestial Tower Association token locks down their outside resources. She admits that even if her filthy rich family tried throwing millions to hire elite bodyguards, that cash would be totally useless inside this ruthless zone. But suddenly Yanzi steps up, looking the MC dead in the eye and shocking everyone by refusing the invite. Yun Cheng gasps, completely stunned, and frantically demands to know why he would reject a free carry. Yanzi clenches his fists, brutally honest, admitting that slaughtering that secret boss in the novice dungeon was basically 100%. Su Ming putting the team on his back. He confesses they were practically deadweight, just leeching off his insane damage, yet they still soaked up a massive amount of free experience points. Sick of feeling weak, he realizes they have grown way too dependent on the MC's overpowering shadow. Plus, with Su Ming's god-tier strength, our guy clearly has legendary targets in his sights, and Yanzi absolutely refuses to act like an anchor dragging him down. Instead, he wants to grind through the blood and sweat, using his own two hands to forge real power. Listening quietly, Ji Yao steps up firmly, declaring that Yanzi is completely right. She realizes they desperately need to face the fire alone to prove their own worth. To maximize their odds of surviving this hellish trial, the three of them agree to form their own independent strike team, bravely leaving Su Ming out of the equation. Turning to the final member, she asks if Yun Cheng is brave enough to take the leap. The rich girl bites her lip heavily, hesitating since she really just wanted to coast safely behind the MC's shield. But looking at her friend's fierce determination, a fire sparks in her eyes. She hypes herself up proudly, agreeing with Ji Yao and practically vibrating with newborn motivation. She decides it is finally time to stop hiding behind a bodyguard and unlock her own true potential. With the battle lines drawn and their resolves locked in, Su Ming officially registers to tackle the brutal tower climb as a lone wolf. Meanwhile, Yanzi, Ji Yao, and Yun Cheng lock in their system request to face the nightmare as a three-man squad. As the crew shares a final heartwarming chat, the ominous figure from earlier is still lurking in the shadows, his cold eyes tracking their every move. This silent stalker is none other than Li Chen Guang, as horrifying flashbacks of his humiliating defeat in the novice dungeon flood his mind. He grinds his teeth violently, swearing that his bloody vendetta against the MC is far from over, suddenly cutting through the tension. A crisp system chime echoes in the MC's ears, confirming that the party rosters are permanently locked in, and the 100-layer tower challenge is officially commencing. Giving his friends a confident thumbs up, Su Ming tells them he is blazing the trail ahead, promising he will be waiting at the finish line to celebrate their epic victory. Fired up, the trio screams for the MC to show zero mercy to the monsters, swearing they are going to push past their absolute limits too. With a blinding flash of light, the system rips Su Ming away into the deadly arena. Stepping confidently into the unknown, our overpowered hero vanishes straight through the glowing teleportation portal. A crisp digital chime rings out. The system flashes a holographic alert, officially crowning him the very first player to breach the legendary 100-floor tower. A rush of nostalgia washes over him, bringing back that familiar tingling sensation from his past life. But before he can even soak it in, another glowing prompt materializes, warning him that his inaugural opponent is dubbed the Furious One. A swirling vortex of energy violently tears open right in front of his eyes, and a shadow steps through the rift. But instead of an imposing beast, Su Ming just blinks in absolute bewilderment at the ridiculous sight waddling out, because standing right there is a literal Qing Yuan free-range chicken. His mind races completely baffled as to why this timeline's trial is drastically mutating from his past memories. Shaking off the shock, Su Ming lunges forward like a coiled spring. He snatches the feathered menace by the throat, gripping the squawking bird tight. He glares at it desperately, trying to compute how a basic farm animal serves as the Floor 1 boss. Back in his previous run, stepping into this exact arena meant locking horns with a terrifying level 5 nightmare known as the purple-furred evil tiger. Yet here he is staring down a literal piece of poultry. The script has been entirely flipped. He cannot help but wonder if this monolithic 100-floor dungeon is deliberately trolling him for being a rookie. Suddenly, a chilling detail catches his eye. The bird's level reads as completely unknown. Deciding not to risk it, he prepares to snap its neck and move on. But the rooster explodes into a feathery frenzy. It rips itself free, rocketing high into the air, and delivers a bone-rattling dropkick straight to his chest, blasting our hero violently across the arena. Gritting his teeth, he scrambles up furious at his own sloppy reflexes. He actually let a damn chicken catch him slipping. His eyes narrow, locking onto the bizarre avian threat with deadly focus. The bird does not hesitate, launching itself back at him like a feathered missile. Meanwhile, out in the Celestial Tower Hall, massive speakers boom. The grand opening ceremony for this year's 100-floor rookie gauntlet has officially concluded. The announcer reveals that the teleportation mechanics will be explained momentarily. But deep in the crowd, a player squints at the glowing displays, completely baffled by a shifting anomaly and desperately wants to know how on earth a live ranking is already blazing across the leaderboard. Whispers ignite like wildfire. Is some madman actually speedrunning the floors right now? All eyes snap to the massive screen. The number 1 spot is dominated by that legendary 10-star prodigy from Wuyang City. Before the shock can even settle, another global alert shatters the murmurs. Announcing that Li Chengguang has just decimated the 2nd floor, the crowd erupts, claiming it has to be the infamous Blade Maniac. But back inside the dungeon, our guy is still locked in a grueling deathmatch with a literal chicken, which refuses to give him a single ounce of breathing room. Su Ming violently backpedals, barely dodging a barrage of lethal beak strikes and razor-sharp claws. His boots glow as he triggers his stealth step, shifting into a blurry phantom. He breaks into a cold sweat. This stupid bird attacks with the terrifying velocity of a speeding bullet. Channeling everything he has, he rockets straight at the beast and slashes. But in a flash of feathers, the freakish animal cleanly evades the deadly arc. He realizes his explosive burst damage is off the charts, but it means nothing if he cannot land a hit. Meanwhile, the rabid rooster digs its claws in, building up terrifying momentum. It rockets skyward, unleashing its ultimate move, Coup Fury. The bird transforms into a blur of pure speed, ricocheting frantically from side to side until it slams a brutal direct hit right into Su Ming, knocking the wind out of his lungs. He grimaces, realizing this creature's offensive pressure is ridiculously overpowered, and that his current active skills, loot, slash, and sword control, are proving completely useless against such an erratic, hypermobile target. Swinging wildly into the air, he desperately tries to clip the bird. He knows he has to create a flawless opening. Because if this ridiculous fight drags out any longer, it is going to completely ruin his run. He vaults backward, gritting his teeth at the bitter reality that his massive time advantage, gained by entering the tower first, is slipping right through his fingers. With no other options, his eyes glow with resolve. It is time to unleash the secret weapon he ripped from the hidden boss back in the tutorial dungeon. Su Ming bursts forward like a meteor. The rooster squawks in sheer panic, but miraculously still manages to twist its body out of the deadly strike's path. Then the fowl hastily backpedals. But a sinister grin spreads across Su Ming's face. He knew it would dodge. The very second the bird's talons touch the floor, a blinding pulse of mystical energy erupts right beneath it. He roars, activating his ultimate move, Sword Tomb. A colossal ethereal blade plunges from the heavens, crushing down to seal away evil. Its catastrophic effect is to summon a divine giant sword technique that explodes from the ground directly under the target, dealing massive damage. Su Ming breathes heavily, watching the thick dust cloud billow, praying it was enough. But when the smoke clears, his stomach drops. The damn country rooster is standing there, totally unharmed. Panic starts to claw at his mind. Is this nightmare completely invincible? He genuinely thought that the physical strength of this mob seemed like absolute trash, definitely not something worthy of guarding the threshold of the tower. But then a brilliant, unconventional idea flashes through his brain. What if he stops fighting it like a monster and starts treating it like an actual biological chicken? The beast shrieks, dive-bombing straight for his face. In response, Su Ming violently stabs his blade deep into the stone and executes a perfectly calculated optical illusion trick. The rooster instantly freezes solid mid-dive. Su Ming smirks triumphantly, realizing his wild gamble actually paid off. In the end, beneath all that insane speed, it was literally just a dumb bird. Seizing the golden window of vulnerability, he lunges in and delivers the brutal finishing blow. The bizarre technique our hero just pulled off is scientifically known as tonic immobility. It is an instinctive biological glitch where poultry literally paralyze themselves out of sheer stress. When a fowl is pinned down and forced to stare dead on at a continuous straight line, its sensory receptors completely short-circuit. It blasts an inescapable red alert to the brain, utterly frying the motor nerves. The animal enters a catatonic trance, stiff as a board and totally defenseless. In this bizarre hypnotic loop, the bird is fully awake, but its heart rate plummets to fake its own death, tricking predators into losing interest. A genius biology hack for the win. Right on cue, the glowing system chimes with a triumphant fanfare, warmly congratulating Su Ming for clearing the absolute absurdity of floor number 1. A massive shimmering gateway tears open. As he steps through the celestial threshold, he wipes the sweat from his brow, realizing that ridiculous farm bird packed a punch far deadlier than anything. So, that was the trick to the first floor. He quickly realizes this initial trial wasn't measuring raw power, but pure intellect. Clearly, this 100-story tower in his new life holds some fascinating surprises. Glancing at the leaderboards, he spots Li Cheng-guang holding the number 1 spot. It dawns on him that rival competitors have already kicked off their ascent. His precious head start has vanished into thin air. Yet a confident smirk crosses his face. This minor setback only fuels his burning desire to dominate. In this fierce scramble to conquer the massive spire, the crown will absolutely belong to him. Meanwhile, an announcer declares that the basic guidelines have been fully outlined. The only thing left is the official sign-up process for the 100-story gauntlet. From the second they stepped inside, the benches lining the walls functioned as automatic check-in stations. With that revelation dropping, competitors are instructed to grab their designated spots. Panic ripples through the crowd. People scramble frantically, muttering how they never expected something so insanely straightforward. They realize they got totally played while enduring that endlessly tedious welcome speech. While half the room frantically hunts for an open chair, recognizing this is a brutal sprint against the clock, others smugly brag they knew. The chairs were portals all along. No wonder the infamous blade maniac Li Cheng-guang is already dominating the charts. Just then, the massive jumbotron flashes an update. Li Cheng-guang just smashed through the 6th level. The entire audience absolutely loses their minds. Suddenly, a spectator gasps as the scoreboard shifts again. Snagging the number 3 spot, Ji Yao's elite squad just pulverized the 4th stage. But his jaw practically hits the floor when a fresh notification pops up. Another mysterious contender just tied for 3rd, sporting the terrifying moniker God of Massacre. This dark horse is hell-bent on being the ultimate trailblazer. Just a few minutes prior, Su Ming stared at a glowing prompt, detailing his prize for clearing the initial stage, a fully customizable title. Stepping through the shimmering gateway into level 2, he couldn't help but scratch his head over this weird perk. He distinctly recalled how things played out in his previous timeline. Back then, slaughtering the first zone's boss yielded a pathetic little wooden box containing a practically worthless health vial. There were definitely no custom titles involved. Now the interface demanded a name. He realized his regression had drastically altered the timeline. Was this butterfly effect triggered purely by his reincarnation? With no way to skip the prompt, he had to play along. Brainstorming a badass, alias he remembered his legendary combat class from his previous life. He confidently locked in God of Massacre. Instantly the interface announced that player 01 Su Ming had officially updated his public display name for the 100-story gauntlet to God of Massacre. This little tweak definitely piqued our hero's curiosity, seeing his real identity completely masked on the global leaderboards. Suddenly, a sharp chime interrupts his thoughts. A fresh alert warns him that the Zone Guardian has officially spawned. Gripping his blade tightly, Su Ming smirks. This is exactly the kind of action he was craving. A vicious level 3 aerial bat materializes from the shadows. Refusing to waste a single second, he brutally slices the beast in half. The global scoreboard immediately shifts, broadcasting that the 3rd-place contender God of Massacre has conquered level 2. The crowd outside erupts in pure shock. Barely 60 seconds had ticked by, and this terrifying newbie had already steamrolled the 2nd zone. A few minutes later, our protagonist eviscerates a level 5 troll tracker on stage 3, triggering another victory chime from the floating interface. Maintaining his flawless momentum, Su Ming effortlessly butchers a level 6, 3-eyed herbivore wandering the 4th stage. Spectators lingering in the lobby are absolutely losing their minds over the staggering velocity of this mysterious God of Massacre. In under 10 minutes, he blasted through 2 entire zones and is breathing down the neck of Vic, the runner-up. Yet the audience knows the current champion. Li Cheng-guang refuses to surrender his throne without a bloodbath. The top dog has already breached level 8. Meanwhile, stepping through his own teleportation gate, Su Ming notices the Blade Maniac's insane progress. Adrenaline surges through his veins. This climb is turning out to be way more thrilling than he ever anticipated. Reflecting on his sluggish start in the first room, he figures he basically handed Li Cheng-guang a free head start. But playtime is officially over. He is stepping on the gas. Just then, the level 7 hellhound of the 5th zone starts manifesting from the ether. Skipping the pleasantries, Su Ming lunges directly at the summoning rift. "I'm not even letting you spawn," he snarls. A few minutes later, Ji Yao's squad barely scrapes by a brutal monster encounter. Wiping sweat from her brow, she praises their successful push. With her spirit beast tanking, the Vanguard Yansei can unleash maximum DPS, leaving Yunqing to juggle crowd control and medical support. She proudly notes how their battlefield synergy is becoming absolutely lethal. Suddenly, Yunqing screams frantically, pointing at the holographic display. She recognizes Su Ming's insane ascent up the leaderboards. But what truly makes their blood run cold isn't just his speed, it's the fact that he just sniped second place, after totally obliterating the seventh. Stage cut to Li Chengguang, who brutally executes another beast to conquer the ninth. Zone. Wiping blood from his blade, he smirks. The demonic entities up here are finally putting up a decent fight. It seems the real meat grinder has finally begun, yet his confidence remains unshaken. He knows the rulebook inside and out. Whoever breaches the highly anticipated 10th level first gets showered with a massive bonus prize. Staring at the leaderboard, he spots the alias God of Massacre sitting in second place. Based on this insane climbing speed, he figures there's only one guy who could pull this off. It has to be that sword controller Su Ming. Sure, it boggles his mind why the very first guy to enter the tower wasted so much time on the bottom level, but he smirks knowing full well that even if Su Ming is sprinting to make up for lost time, there's absolutely zero chance he can catch up now, confident that the 10th floor's exclusive bonus is already in the bag. His cocky grin vanishes the second he glances sideways. His jaw drops. Our boy just smashed through the 9th floor, breathing right down his neck. Meanwhile, inside the 10th floor arena, Su Ming stands ready, waiting for the boss to step out of. The glowing portal. The moment the shadows part, a massive level 15 furious minotaur roars into the arena. Outside the tower, the crowd is buzzing, wondering why so many. Challengers are just glued to the massive leaderboard, instead of actually climbing. A few bystanders scoff, pointing out that jumping in late doesn't even matter at this point, because either way, none of them can ever match the blistering pace of these top-tier freaks. Back in the arena, our hero is just playing with his food. After landing a devastating slash, he mocks the beast, asking if the mighty furious minotaur is already running out of gas. With its health bar blinking red, the colossal monster crashes down on its knees. Su Ming just shakes his head, chuckling that this giant only lasted 30 seconds against him. Gripping his blade tight, he channels a massive surge of aura into the steel, noting that exploiting this beast's glaring weakness was a huge boost for his climb through. The tower, a truly noble sacrifice. Without hesitation, he triggers his sword, strike skill instantly decapitating the monster and ending its misery. Seconds later, a glowing system prompt chimes in, announcing that our guy has flawlessly cleared the 10th floor, and since he is the very first challenger to conquer this milestone in the current Celestial Tower Council, he just scored an exclusive bonus reward. Meanwhile, in a completely different location, someone groggily flutters their eyes open, just barely making out a voice saying their pulse is finally stable. The sweet nurse gasps, totally relieved to see her patient returning to the land of the living. Jang Tang shoots up in a panic, completely disoriented as he realizes he's stuck in a hospital bed. The nurse gently explains the whole embarrassing truth he blacked out, after getting zapped by high voltage for throwing a tantrum inside the 100th-floor tower. The blonde rich kid flushes bright red, feeling incredibly awkward, once he realizes his caretaker is absolutely gorgeous. But he furiously shakes his head, snapping out of it, because his heart beats only for his beloved Xiaomon. Yet the very second her beautiful face flashes in his mind, the smug face of our hero invades his thoughts, making his blood boil. A few minutes later, he storms back into the ceremony hall, plotting his brutal revenge, only to freeze when he realizes that the massive hall is a ghost town. It hits him hard. Every single challenger is already snatched up. Their Celestial Tower Council tokens, and vanished inside the trial. Panic grips his chest as the crushing reality sinks in. He has been completely left in the dust, and worse. He knows damn well his level will never catch up to that bastard Su Ming now. He screams into the empty room, cursing his own hot-headed stupidity, regretting that he acted like such a reckless idiot. But as the flashback plays in his head, his guilt twists into pure rage. He pins all the blame on our hero, utterly convinced that Su Ming knew the tower's penalty rules from the start, and baited him into a sick trap. Gritting his teeth, he vows to turn this around. He's the proud young master of the Zheng family after all. Suddenly, a dark idea lights up his eyes. Snatching up his smartphone, a wicked smirk crawls across his face. Who cares if his level falls tragically behind the rest of the pack? It doesn't mean a damn thing. There's no way in hell he's letting that punk walk away unpunished, even if he has to pull strings and unleash the full terrifying might of his family's empire. Without a second thought, his thumbs fly across the screen, firing off a text to a very dangerous contact. The message is crystal clear. He is calling in the family's underworld connections to wipe a certain someone off the map. Jing Tong bursts into a sinister laugh, convincing himself this is the only logical move. He mutters that he never wanted to play dirty like this, but that arrogant trash Su Ming left him no choice. Striding over to the testing pods, he recalls the nurse mentioning that the tower's interface activates the second you plant yourself in the chair. Sitting down, he immediately decides to scout the live leaderboards. Strangely enough, he can't find Su Ming's name anywhere on the list. However, he notices second place is already smashed through the 16th floor. But considering it's the prodigy Li Chengguang, from Weiyang Academy, that's practically expected. Suddenly his eyes widen in pure confusion. Staring at the absolute top of the board, he stammers desperately wondering who this mysterious god of massacre-dominating first place could possibly be seeing, as this absolute beast just annihilated the 18th floor. Flash forward a few minutes inside the chaotic tower. Our boy is already locked in another deadly brawl. He swings his heavy blade and swiftly backflips, barely dodging a nasty swipe from the creature's razor-sharp claws. As the monstrosity lunges forward, a drop of sweat rolls down Su Ming's face. He finally starts feeling the pressure, realizing that pushing this high up the tower is genuinely draining his stamina at his current level. Right now, standing on the 19th floor, he is staring down a brutal level 20 amethyst crystal beast. Catching his breath, he notes that these boss mechanics are getting ridiculously tricky. This massive rock monster literally buries its entire giant body deep underground, and leaving nothing exposed except the impenetrable glittering amethyst spikes crowning its head. Without warning, the hidden giant launches an assault, spewing swarms of smaller rock minions up to the surface while hiding safely in the dirt. To make matters worse, these annoying little ankle biters pack a defense just as unbreakable as solid amethyst. Slicing through a few of the pesky grunts, he grunts in frustration. He knows damn well that breaking through that insane armor is going to be flat out impossible if he relies on his old silver tier gear. But then a confident smirk returns to his face. He isn't sweating this fight one bit. His mind flashes back to his victory over the furious Minotaur on the 10th floor. As a sweet payout for securing the fastest clear time server-wide, the system handed him a dazzling gold-tier weapon chest. Wasting zero time, he instantly popped his overpowered all-things sublimation skill, mutating that standard gold box. He almost straight into a glorious platinum-tier treasure. Cracking it open, he scored the legendary twin blades of the Blackstone Rift, a lethal weapon demanding a level 18 wielder. He knows the deep lore behind this weapon too. Originally, it was a majestic greatsword that was violently snapped in half during an ancient war. Later, a master blacksmith salvaged the pieces, fusing them back together, using a priceless dragon scale as its core, restoring the shattered relic to its absolute prime. Now the blade is terrifyingly sharp, perfectly forged to handle the explosive pressure of pure killing intent. Since these twin sickles used to be a single massive longsword, the system still registers the weapon under the broadsword category. But the moment you split them apart for dual wielding, they take on the properties of shattered steel, shifting their classification right into the short sword or dagger class. On top of that, its insane buff modifiers include the deadly fire scale. Right in the core of his shattered blade rests a blazing fire dragon scale, granting the dagger a massive 200% boost in fire damage. Su Ming weighs his options. Longsword mode packs a devastating punch to his cutting power, but it completely tanks his attack speed. And with the boss's tiny minions swarming in a slow weapon is basically a death sentence against this mob. So he triggers the split blade ability. The weapon snaps right down the middle, morphing into a pair of lethal dual swords. His attack speed instantly skyrockets by 50%, though his cutting damage takes a 30% hit. But as he readies his stance, he isn't sweating the damage drop. Thanks to his overpowered origin sword body talent, every single weapon he wields gets a massive buff. With his base attack power surging, he can perfectly dominate with both blistering speed and lethal force. Meanwhile, a few minutes later on the 17th floor, Li Chengguang is fighting for his life. He scrambles backward, panic setting in as his health bar drops below half. Staring down the towering level 18 giant Treant, he knows he's completely hit a wall. The monster's fatal weakness is fire, but since he stubbornly decided to run this dungeon completely solo, he doesn't have a single fire spell to keep the beast at bay. Suddenly, the massive Treant unleashes a brutal strike, launching him through the air like a ragdoll. As he crashes hard, bitterness consumes him. Realizing the absolute worst part is that he hasn't snagged a single decent stat boost while climbing. His mind flashes back to his supposed victory on the 10th floor. All he got was a pathetic silver chest. He grits his teeth knowing this garbage loot is the direct result of losing the tower race to Su Ming and having to settle for a basic silver tier prize. And to pour salt in the wound, the accessory inside was strictly for mage classes, which has absolutely nothing to do with his combat style. Caught slipping in his own regrets, the 17th floor boss slams him head on. Coughing up blood, Li Chengguang leaps back, realizing he can no longer push his limits. With his HP flashing dangerously into the red, he knows if he takes one more reckless hit, he will be permanently wiped out right here on the spot. Swallowing his pride, he yanks open the system interface. A global notification pings announcing that Challenger ID 02 has officially chosen to forfeit the 17th floor trial, joining the growing graveyard of failed climbers. Back on the front line, our boy is busy shredding through the amethyst crystal beast's annoying little minions. Su Ming flashes a cocky grin, staring dead into the eyes of the crystal behemoth. "Finally caught you," he smirks. Without missing a beat, he unleashes his devastating sword tomb ability. The monstrous creature takes a brutal hit. Su Ming vaults into the air, yelling out that he finally skewered its real body, hiding deep underground. Ripping it up to the surface, he executes the boss flawlessly. The system instantly chimes in, confirming he just obliterated the 19th floor. A few minutes later, Su Ming scrolls through the tower's live feed, noticing a massive wave of players and squads tapping out on the lower levels. His eyes catch a familiar name, the blade maniac Li Cheng. Guang had thrown in the towel too. Honestly, Su Ming isn't shocked at all. The 100th-floor tower is a literal nightmare, with the difficulty ramping up insanely, past level 10. To be fair, Li Chengguang dragging himself all the way to floor 17 is actually a massive flex. Su Ming remembers clearly from the memories of his past life that the 20th floor acts as an absolute meat grinder. From there, the hellish difficulty doesn't just climb, it violently multiplies. Plus, he's fully aware that hitting floor 19 with his current stats is pushing his absolute breaking point. However, after grinding his heart out to finally hit level 20, he knows it's time to bust out a legendary nostalgic trump card from his past life, using his Sword God class. Fast forward to the highly anticipated 20th floor. Su Ming is caught in a brutal high-stakes showdown. Suspended in midair, he manipulates his telekinetic sword control to rain down strikes on the floor boss, but the enemy flawlessly parries every single blade with terrifying precision. Su Ming instantly recalls his weapon gripping the hilt tight as he triggers Stealth Step. He bursts forward at blinding speed, unleashing an absolute hurricane of slashes, but reality hits hard. The boss is shrugging off his ultimate combo like it's nothing, taking a step back. He sizes up his opponent. "Makes sense," he mutters, facing down a staggering level 25 Seal Knight. Sensing Su Ming's brief hesitation, the knight seizes the opening surging raw energy straight into its greatsword before hurling it like a missile. Su Ming takes the devastating impact point blank. Gritting his teeth against the searing pain, he realizes the knight's raw power is just too overwhelming. Unable to anchor his footing, he's blasted across the arena, crashing violently into the dirt. Cold sweat drips down his face as he calculates his current gear and base stats. Blocking that juggernaut attack head-on is straight-up suicide. He knows that just one basic strike carves out a massive third of his total health bar. Doing the math, he figures his body can only tank exactly one more hit before it's game over. Staring down the heavily armored menace, he accepts the harsh truth. Even with a second lease on life, bridging such a gigantic level gap in the unforgiving 100th-floor tower of the Celestial Tower Council is practically impossible, but he isn't panicking. This brutal reality check is exactly what he planned for. Wiping the dirt from his face, he rises to his feet and summons his Shadow Sword set. He reminds himself that the only reason he pushed this deep into the danger zone was to test drive a heavily restricted ability that unlocks right at level 20. The exact same signature move that made him an absolute legend in his past life. Su Ming focuses every ounce of his aura and unleashes the single slash of the God of Massacre. The apocalyptic wave of energy rips through the air, rocketing straight for the Seal Knight. Cut to the outside world. Li Chengguang stumbles out of the exit portal, immediately catching the loud whispers of the crowd hyping up the mysterious player titled the God of Massacre, who is still actively tearing through the dungeon. His ears burn as he overhears the chatter this God of Massacre is currently throwing down. With the 20th floor boss on his very first rookie run, the Blade Maniac clenches his fists, absolutely stunned. For anyone to possess the sheer insane firepower to survive the 20th floor, it has to be that freakish sword controller. Just then, a rival player strolls up smugly mocking Chengguang for getting totally humiliated by this so-called God of Massacre. For the very first time since childhood, he watches him suffer a brutal defeat. Li Chengguang absolutely despises hearing this news. Meanwhile, snapping back to our main character's intense showdown against the Seal Knight, the devastating skill he unleashed just shatters completely. Staring down the towering boss who still clings to over half its health pool, Su Ming realizes he has no choice but to swallow his pride and admit defeat. If not even the absolute power of the single strike of the God of Massacre could scratch this armored juggernaut, what hope does he have? Reluctantly, he pulls up his system panel, ready to forfeit his run on the 20th floor. Su Ming silently accepts his bitter loss, but his eyes snap wide open in sheer shock when the menacing knight suddenly speaks up, declaring that he definitely did not lose. The armored giant emphasizes that the main character's current level and base attributes are just drastically insufficient. Because his stats are so glaringly low, he simply cannot unleash the true devastating potential of his skill. Su Ming stares at the imposing Seal Knight, utterly bewildered, questioning if this massive boss is actually talking to him. The colossal warrior merely states that he will eagerly await Su Ming's triumphant return for a future rematch. Right after that, the main character teleports back, figuring this bustling sanctuary must be the designated resting zone after braving the 100th-floor tower. As he strolls through the massive plaza, excited whispers ripple through the crowd. Players gossip that the live ranking board just refreshed. Apparently, the mysterious newcomer dubbed the God of Massacre finally failed a challenge. Even so, everyone agrees that simply surviving all the way up to the 19th floor is an absolute flex. After all, even the legendary Blade Maniac Li Chengguang barely scraped his way to the 16th floor. A massive crowd swarms the glowing portals, desperate to unmask the true identity of this mystery player holding the terrifying God of Massacre title. Our main character couldn't care less about the raging gossip smirking, as he realizes that grabbing this epic title back on the first floor was incredibly clutch. Since his total concealment passive only scrambles his data inside regular dungeons, it's practically useless inside the 100th floor tower. Fortunately, since absolutely nobody knows his actual score, he knows he can easily stay entirely under the radar. Dodging unnecessary drama is always the smartest play. Glancing up at the giant leaderboards, he spots Zhao and her squad, currently sweating it out on the 14th floor. It looks like their combat synergy has seriously leveled up. He nods in quiet approval, knowing that if they just stick to playing it incredibly safe and steady, they can definitely conquer even higher, more brutal tiers. Satisfied with their solid progress, Su Ming decides that since his crew is handling business perfectly, it's time for him to blaze ahead and crush the next major stage. Hitting level 20 triggered a massive milestone. His highly anticipated second attribute ascension quest for his next class change has finally popped up on his screen. To kill two birds with one stone, he decides to knock out a heavy-duty subjugation bounty located right next to the exact drop zone of his yet second class advancement quest. However, he raises a surprised eyebrow when he scrolls the bounty board, realizing his current tier only gives him access to rank F, E, and D tier monster hunts. Flipping through the available map coordinates, he realizes he is locked into choosing just one hostile region. A sharp mechanical chime echoes as the system confirms he had officially accepted the Area D17 subjugation quest. His prime target, slaying a monstrous python king lurking deep inside the overgrown wild forest of the Nanli district. The payout is a massive 1,000 advent coins plus a highly coveted random platinum level skill scroll, wasting 0 time. Su Ming swipes his Sky Tower assembly token across the glowing terminal, immediately receiving a prompt stating he has been granted ultimate Vienna IP clearance to enter and exit the 100th-floor tower premises whenever he pleases. Better yet, he just unlocked full access to the mysterious illusory realm. Su Ming wastes absolutely no time at all, instantly diving right into the illusory realm portal. Sweeping his gaze across the surreal landscape, he quickly deduces that this sprawling phantom zone perfectly bridges the gap to the Sky Tower's assembly base, yet its eerie chaotic atmosphere feels entirely alien compared to reality. Deep down, he vividly recalls the grim ancient lore. Before the apocalyptic day of awakening shattered the sky, the real world was just a peaceful sanctuary where ordinary humanity lived. But when the cataclysmic day of awakening finally hit a tidal wave of terrifying anomalies, deadly dungeons, savage demons, and bloodthirsty monsters violently erupted across the globe. Desperate to survive, humanity was forced to merge with this brutal new reality, unlocking awakened professions, forged through the unimaginable bloodshed and sacrifices of their brave predecessors. A fragile order was slowly rebuilt from the bloody ashes of a completely destroyed world. From that absolute chaos, the illusory realm was engineered a massive quarantine dimension, strictly isolated from the safe zones where civilians now live. It was designated as a sprawling containment grid for nightmarish demons and aberrant beasts. Locking the monsters away inside this realm is the exact reason humanity enjoys the relatively peaceful global era that everyone takes for granted today. Su Ming completely understands that surviving the grueling trials of the 100th-floor tower is the ultimate proving ground, acting as the strict gateway that grants novice players the right to venture into this incredibly dangerous territory. Furthermore, dark rumors claim that the absolute pinnacle of the 100th-floor tower actually conceals the horrifying truths behind the apocalypse. Thinking back on his brutal past, he feels a bitter pang of regret that he died before uncovering those dark secrets in his previous life, but fate gave him a miraculous second chance. This time he is fully prepared to absolutely crush the monumental goals he tragically missed before. Suddenly a sharp holographic ping snaps him back to reality. A pristine system alert pops up, notifying our main character that a glowing rift has successfully stabilized for him. But he needs to select a specific drop zone deep within the illusory realm. Su Ming flatly rejects the prompt, deciding he desperately needs to make a quick pit stop back in the real world first. Without missing a beat, the system registers his override command and rapidly tears open a swirling portal directly back to humanity's bustling safe zone. As he steps through, a satisfying chime alerts him to a massive deposit of 10,000 advent coins, his hard-earned bounty for clearing the 20th floor. Smirking, he calculates that this hefty payout is exactly enough to cover the custom gear he special ordered 2 days ago. Gliding through the glowing transfer gate, his mind races. In this second life, fully embracing his legendary path, as the god of the sword, he absolutely requires that top-tier advanced weapon. Stepping completely out of the rift, the chaotic sights and sounds of the real-world weapon trading center crash over him. Staring at the massive marketplace, he knows he'll become a frequent customer here. A wave of nostalgia hits him as he recalls cracking open raw loot stones, praying to unbox decent silver-tier weapons. He also admits that his trusty bloodthirsty Joan Steel sword simply lacks the raw firepower needed to survive the nightmarish difficulty of his upcoming raids. Still parting with its stings because its insanely overpowered weapon buffs and provide phenomenal combat sustain. Honestly, he really doesn't want to just toss it aside so easily. The brutal red blood perk allows the blade to aggressively siphon the enemy's life force with every single strike, rapidly patching up his own lethal wounds mid-fight. On top of that, the terrifying Bloodthirst passive triggers the moment he executes a monster, explosively boosting all of his overall attributes by a flat 5 points for 30 frantic seconds. As he navigates the crowded streets, a memory flashes back to a casual chat he had with Jiao 2 days prior. She enthusiastically mentioned that she Maul had locked in a massive shopping spree with Yanzi and Yun Qing. The girls were pooling all the epic loot drops they farmed from the novice dungeon to heavily upgrade their arsenals for their next brutal run up the 100-floor tower. She practically begged him to tag along as their guide. However, Su Ming flashed a warm smile, politely turning his friend down, explaining that he urgently needed to handle some top-secret modifications for his own lethal weapons and gear. That day, Zhao actually mentioned that they were heading straight for the towering skyscraper of this very weapon trading center to blow their cash. What a crazy coincidence. However, the main C waved them off, glued to his computer screen, totally swamped. Zhao casually offered to grab him something while she was out. Everything went smoothly until our protagonist finally locked in his pre-sale order. The catch, a staggering 10,000 Advent coins paid up front. Once the massive transaction cleared, Su Ming thanked his buddy, explaining that his next stop for gear and prep lay in the exact opposite direction. With his plan set in stone, he hopped into an elevator descending deep into basement level A2, right into warehouse 9B. A woman glanced up as he walked in, smirking and calling him out for being late. Without missing a beat, she demanded to know if he brought the rest of the cash. Su Ming's mind flashed back to the 10,000 coins he had just scored on the 20th floor of the tower challenge, along with that game-changing system. Alert. He had bagged the weapon replication enhancement device. He knew all too well that his ultimate talent, the sublimation of all things, was strictly a one-time deal per item. And to make matters worse, the final upgrade stats were completely left up to chance. Clutching the shiny new device, he realized that if he really wanted to keep the killer stats of his bloodthirsty Juan steel sword, while still pushing its power to the absolute limit, this little gadget was his only shot. Scanning its specs, he noticed it would not just level up the gear. It cloned it entirely. It locked in the original weapon's traits while simultaneously giving its core stats a massive randomized boost during the upgrade. Without hesitating, Su Ming activated the device. Instantly, the system chimed, announcing that his bloodthirsty Juan steel sword had morphed into the terrifyingly upgraded bloodthirsty Juan blade sword. Shock washed over his face. It actually worked. He realized that at this point in the game, the only person capable of crafting such an insane enhancement tool was the 8-star blacksmith standing right in front of him. She scoffed, pointing out that they were complete strangers. After all, she had been holed up in this run-down underground warehouse, quietly obsessing over her forging research. Eyes narrowing, she interrogated him. How did he get her number? And how on earth did he know she could actually pull off building a weapon replication enhancement device? The raw materials alone cost a jaw-dropping 10,000 Advent coins. She crossed her arms, admitting she never expected some fresh-faced, newly awakened student to throw around that kind of cash. Leaning in, she asked if he was not terrified the whole experiment would crash and burn. Su Ming just smirked. "Who said we do not know each other?" he shot back. The blacksmith blinked, totally thrown off, suddenly doubting her own memory. In his past life, the two of them had actually been incredibly close. He chuckled, brushing it off as a joke, but his mind raced with memories. Back then, Nahura was an absolute legend in the forging world. Sure, she started out strictly as an 8-star talent, but her fiery passion and relentless grind eventually skyrocketed her to unimaginable heights. Staring at her, he recalled teaming up with her countless times. She had personally crafted some of his most devastating one-of-a-kind weapons, but the price tag for her elite services back then practically bled him dry. Right now, however, 20,000 Advent coins felt like absolute pocket change. To secure his future, he needed to lay the groundwork right away, striking a deal while she was dead, broke, and desperate. So, Su Ming leaned in, telling the stunned blacksmith that he did not just have her number. He also knew she was stressing out, completely strapped for cash to fund her next major research and development project. Nahura gasped, demanding to know how he figured that out. Su Ming did not flinch, coolly offering to front her 10,000 Advent coins right on the spot. He promised that as he crushed more quests and raked in rewards, he would keep pouring money into her work. Then he raised an eyebrow. "Deal?" Nahura's eyes lit up. She frantically asked if he was messing with her. Su Ming swore he was dead serious, but dropped the hammer. There was one absolute condition. Whenever he needed gear custom made, she had to slash her crafting fees down to 30%. Nahura eagerly shook on it, declaring that would not be an issue at all. A few hours later, deep inside the untamed zones of the illusory realm, a tiny critter scampered across a rotting log. Suddenly, a sharp rustle made it freeze. It whipped around only to find a massive drooling carnivorous plant snapping down. Trapped and helpless, the creature was instantly swallowed whole. Right then, the air ripped apart. A glowing portal materialized and Su Ming stepped through. Scanning his surroundings, he smirked. The illusory realm definitely lived up to the hype. The trees here were absolute titans compared to the puny woods in the novice dungeon. Thick, suffocating vines choked the landscape, and a metallic stench of blood hung heavy in the air. He flicked open his holographic map, pinpointing his next brutal target, the Python King. His objective was locked deep within the southern sector of the Evil River Wilderness. The quest was suicidal for most: hunt down a third-class Change Python King, a beast that had already slaughtered and eaten multiple members of the Celestial Tower Council. This monster packed monstrous physical power, and its level was currently sitting right around 25. The bounty: a sweet 10,000 Advent coins and a randomized platinum rank skill scroll. He quickly charted out his path, but the towering ancient trees created a massive canopy, completely blinding his line of sight. Plus, with the trunks being this insanely huge parkouring across the branches like he did back in the novice dungeon, was entirely out of the question. However, drawing his newly forged blade, a wild idea popped into his head. There was one crazy trick he could pull off. Sure, he was not officially a pure-blood sword controller class, but he still possessed the raw telekinetic grip to move blades. He visualized himself surfing through the sky on his weapon exactly like the legendary top-tier sword controllers did. That would be incredibly badass. Smirking, he slammed his foot onto the flat of the blade, figuring he had absolutely nothing to lose. He poured his mana into his sword control skill, but the second he commanded the weapon to launch into the air, his balance completely failed, sending him crashing face first into the dirt. Spitting out mud, Su Ming groaned. It was exactly as he feared. True sword surfing was strictly hard locked to actual sword controllers. Unfazed, he switched up his tactics. He hurled the blade high into the sky, grabbed the hilt with a death grip, and let it violently drag him through the air. Soaring upwards, he realized, he quickly figures it out. Even though he can't actually ride the blade like a traditional cultivator, gripping the hilt and spamming his sword control skill at specific targets gets the job done. Firing off the ability back-to-back works like a charm. Su Ming triggers the skill, letting the weapon yank him violently from branch to branch. The sheer adrenaline hits him, sparking a wild idea. Why not just fly, hurling the blade straight up into the sky? The momentum rips him upward. Dangling midair, he takes in the sprawling landscape below. A massive grin spreads across his face as he soaks in the scenery. The view up here is absolutely breathtaking. Wasting no more time, he shifts the blade's trajectory southward, shooting straight toward his main objective, like a bullet. Just a few minutes later, deep within another sector of this illusory forest, a spatial rift tears open, spitting out a group of menacing players. Sweeping the area, one of the thugs grunts, asking for their exact coordinates. A tough-looking guy, rocking a mohawk, smirks, confirming they have landed right in the heart of Subjugation Quest D17. Swiping through his glowing system interface, he points out a crucial detail. Sure, these brutal subjugation missions are meant for full squads, but their specific target had the nerve to accept it completely solo. Because of that reckless move, tracking Su Ming's name down in the solo player registry was a total breeze. The only woman in their crew chuckles, mocking the kid's sheer audacity. To tackle a raid-level boss all by himself. Another merc scoffs, writing the MC off as a clueless rookie practically begging for a death wish. Honestly, he bets they won't even need to lift a finger to hunt him down. The dungeon monsters will probably tear the kid to shreds anyway, but the Mohawk leader barks out an order to hustle. If the monsters finish him off first, they completely miss out on claiming that massive bounty on his head. Meanwhile, back inside the massive 100-floor tower, Zhang Tong angrily hits the forfeit button, tapping out on the 13th floor. Stepping back through the exit portal, he lets out a heavy, frustrated sigh. He literally had no choice but to throw in the towel. Right out of the gate, he fell embarrassingly behind the top-tier challengers. Without a decent squad to back him up, pushing through the brutal upper floors was impossible, leaving him with an absolutely pathetic final score for his first run. It's guaranteed his academy evaluation is going to tank. To make matters worse, the lobby is practically a ghost town. It looks like the vast majority of participants have already moved on to tackle the subjugation quests for the next major phase. Scowling at the glowing leaderboard, Zheng Tang realizes something weird. Su Ming's name is nowhere to be found. The kid isn't chilling in the rest area either. His mind races, wondering what the hell's going on. Did the loser just give up and quit early? Because if he can't pinpoint the target's exact location, those high-level assassins he hired are going to be completely useless. Suddenly, a familiar voice cuts through his racing thoughts. He eavesdrops as Yanzi cheerfully tells Jiao that trusting her battle strategy definitely saved their skins. If they hadn't listened to clearing that brutal 15th floor, would have been a pipe dream. Jiao humbly shakes her head, crediting their epic teamwork. Though she admits, if they had recruited a sturdier frontline tank, they could have pushed even higher up the tower. After all, her summoned creatures are basically glass cannons right now. Yunqing bursts into laughter, hyping them up. Considering they pulled off such an insane rank, without relying on Su Ming to carry them, it's a massive win. Lurking in the shadows, Zheng Tang seethes with pure envy. They all came from the exact same academy, yet their scores completely crushed his. Yanzi sighs, mentioning they wasted way too much time grinding the tower, so they need to hustle and lock in their next mission phase. But first, he wants to know how Su Ming's progress is going, which totally catches the blonde guy off guard. Jiao chimes in casually, dropping a bombshell she actually just texted him, and apparently he already triggered a subjugation quest, and bolted straight into the danger zone. Yunqing's jaw drops. Wait, is that crazy bastard seriously running a raid mission totally solo? Jiao lets out a heavy sigh and nods. Yep, typical Su Ming. The guy has always been a stubborn lone wolf since they were kids. Yunqing smirks, firing up his crew. Well, it looks like their trio just needs to grind twice as hard. There's no way they're letting him leave them in the dust. Jackpot, overhearing this goldmine of information, Zheng Tong eagerly whips out his phone, a sinister smile creeping onto his face. He finally has a solid lead. If that arrogant punk really had the guts to fly solo, he definitely picked some garbage low-tier mission to play it safe. This is going to be incredibly easy.